4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
From the palatial yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street, Welcome on in to a Wednesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all of our great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming on YouTube. 855-212-4CBS number to jump on in. 855-212-4227. Got Moist Mike in the house. Stuart Kovacs is out because it's his birthday. He's probably hanging out with his girlfriend and getting some Fogo de Chao. So we go to Mr. Ayo, Pat Boyle in the house, rocking and rolling all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Josh Perry, former Ohio State linebacker, now superstar analyst for NBC Sports, going to stop by to preview all the rivalry games coming up 20 minutes from now. And then coming up in the final hour of the show at 5:20 p.m. Eastern, 2:20 p.m. Pacific will be John Jansen, the former Detroit Lion and also offensive lineman for the Michigan Wolverines. He'll be stopping by. We'll do a lot of Lions talk with him in addition to the game this weekend as he's the color analyst for Michigan football on the radio. But let's start with that game, the game. And there's a lot of years where this game comes and it's a big-time game just because of history and the rivalry. And we know for Ohio State, this is everything. For Michigan, this is everything. But for so many years, Michigan was not able to take down Ohio State. And it almost got to a point where it was comical. Now, the last 2 years, we saw 2 seasons ago, Michigan just emasculate Ohio State. And then last year, you did see the game be good for 3 quarters. And then the fourth quarter, Michigan took it right to Ohio State. Now, if you're a Michigan fan, you will say the sign-stealing scandal does not matter. They lined up the football. They beat the snot out of them inside the trenches. And they ran the football until they couldn't run anymore because the clock expired. If you are an Ohio State fan, you will say, oh, those cheaters, they had to have Connor Stallion scout all the signs and steal the signs, to beat us 2 years. That's what makes this game so fun. Because sometimes you have a rivalry. And a lot of times in sports now, we have rivalries, but in a society where it's like, pat everyone on the behind, say everyone does a good job, a lot of times the rivalries don't have as much animosity as they once did. And I don't want to sound like an old man here because I'm not, back in the day. But now there is a great hatred. Now this is personal. And when these two teams step on the field on Saturday at noon Eastern, this is going to be a bloodbath. This is going to be a war in a football sense. And I can't wait to go to Ann Arbor. I fly in on Friday. I can't wait to attend the game on Saturday. The only thing that stinks about this game is I'm a big post-game handshake guy, which some people will say, Zach, what are you talking about? How many years have I listened to you where you have bitched and complained how people don't shake hands after a game, people are freaking out, and you're saying, who cares if people shake hands? But I like to see a handshake when there's some animosity, because then you could get a little Jim Schwartz and John Harbaugh situation like you did all those years ago with the 49ers and also the Detroit Lions. I like when it's an icy stare. I like when there's an aggressive handshake after the game. And we could have had that on Saturday because we know Ryan Day hates Jim Harbaugh and Jim Harbaugh hates Ryan Day. But Jim Harbaugh is serving the final game of the 3-game suspension by the Big Ten, which was idiotic, which was stupid by the Big Ten, which was a complete rush to judgment. And I'm not saying Michigan didn't do anything wrong. I've said from the start, Michigan deserves to be punished. Michigan deserves a punitive action. But to throw the book at them or to take the coach off the field for 3 games in season with how historically conferences and the NCAA move as slow could be, I didn't think you needed to do anything in season, but Tony Petitti had to bow down, and Tony Petitti had to listen to the other schools in the conference and swing his you-know-what around and say, hey, I'm the new guy on the block. Hey, I'm the big man on campus right now, and I need to show Jim Harbaugh, Michigan, who's boss, which is why it's stupid, because now this is going to go back to the NCAA, and the NCAA in 3 years are going to decide, Jim Harbaugh, you still at Michigan? Oh, yes, no, we don't know. Oh, yeah, then we'll tack on an extra 3 games for what happened with Connor Stallions. And the NCAA, even though I don't believe this, they still say that there's no evidence right now that Jim Harbaugh knew anything. Now, it's tough for me to believe, even someone that is saying Michigan should not get the book thrown out them, and now this 3-game suspension in season is ridiculous. It is impossible for me to believe that at no point Jim Harbaugh didn't know what was going on. But this is a rivalry where it's nasty, there's animosity, and even though sometimes people take it too far, this is what sports is all about. And it goes back to Harbaugh not being able to defeat Ryan Day, Michigan with COVID, skipping out of that 2020 game. Then Ryan Day saying he's going to hang 100 on Michigan and he wants to beat the snot out of them. And then you see Michigan punch back. Harbaugh say, we can't all be born on third base. And then it led to back-to-back years, cheating or not, Michigan taking down Ohio State. This game means everything on Saturday. I love rivalries like the Iron Bowl. I love it each and every year. Army-Navy when they play. There's nothing like Army-Navy. And we know what that game stands for. There's so many great rivalries in sports, but this one, there's no respect. This one, there is a hatred, and these two teams don't just want to win. They want to drag their opponent up and down the field. And this is going to be some sight. This is going to be some scene. And the only shame is that Harbaugh isn't on the sideline. Because it would add more to it if after the game, you need to see Jim Harbaugh in the khaki pants trot out to Ryan Day with that beard, probably wanted to go attack like a college football coach that's 85 like he did after the Notre Dame game, and them have to come together and do like the weak handshake or, nice to see you, good to see you, the wave. I would like to see that moment. And we got robbed of that moment because Tony Petitti is a gutless fraud. All righty? And I don't like Tony Petitti. He's a coward. He's a pain in the ass. But let's listen up. This is Jim Harbaugh, which is in the nonsensical suspension world. He's allowed to be there during the week for 3 straight weeks. But then on game day, he's not allowed to be there. I'm really curious. What is Jim Harbaugh going to be doing during the game? So I don't know what he did for the Penn State game, but last week he spent it, since they were playing Maryland, at his brother's house and watching with his brother's family before connecting back with the team. I really wonder what Jim Harbaugh is going to be doing during the game because he's not allowed to be in the stadium. Like, it would be pretty damn cool. Michigan beats Ohio State, and after the game, they parade him in. Like he's like when the Pope comes to town, has the Pope Mobile, and you got the Pope Mobile on the field at Ann Arbor in the big house, and Harbaugh emerges. It would just be awesome. But let's listen up to Jim Harbaugh, since he's allowed to be there during the week but not on game day, when he was asked, is there any respect for Ryan Day and Ohio State?
Jim, this rivalry has always been heated, of course. It seems like there's always been a fair level of respect between the coaches. It's hard to determine what that is right now. What would you say is your respect level for Ryan Day and their staff?
It's all about our preparation for Ohio.
I have no respect for Ryan Day from Jim Harbaugh. That's so funny. Hey, Coach, so-and-so from the Detroit Free Press, where's your respect level at for Ryan Day and Ohio State? It's all about the preparation for Ohio State.
It's all about our preparation for Ohio.
That'd be like, hey, Zach, do you respect working with Pat Boyle? Do you respect Pat Boyle as a human being? It's all about the preparation and doing a great 3-hour show. Now, I respect Pat. I love Pat Boyle. But when you don't answer that question, we all know what the answer is. And when you sit there and go, and sound like the emergency alert system, we all know you can't stand Ryan Day. So that question early in the week gets asked to Jim Harbaugh. Very fitting. It gets back to Ryan Day. And then the Ohio State media members asked the same question to Ryan Day.
This rivalry's been heated for over 100 years. It's very intense, but there's always been respect among players, or between players, it seems like. Does that hold true for coaches? Do you respect Jim Harbaugh and his staff, or what's the feel there?
Yeah, I think, with everything going on and the things, that are out there, we've just kind of stayed away from all the distractions we have, and just focused on our team. And I think our guys have done a good job of it. I think, they're focused on this game. They're focused on this season. They're focused on their preparation. And we're just going to continue on that.
Gentlemen, I'm disappointed with Jim Harbaugh and I'm disappointed with Ryan Day. Speak your mind. Jim Harbaugh, I can't stand Ryan Day. He's been born on third base. He's a crying baby. That's what I wanted to hear from Jim Harbaugh. Ryan Day, hey, Jim Harbaugh's a cheating bastard. The only reason he beat me the last 2 years was because he had our signs. Just say those things, because that's the way that both gentlemen truly feel. Now, when we get to the game and when we get behind all the hype and all the buildup and all the animosity, I think there's 3 storylines heading into this one. Number one, the Ohio State defense has improved in a big-time way from the last 2 years. The strength of this Ohio State team is their defense right now. So it's one thing to beat the snot out of Penn State. It's one thing for your defense to play well all throughout the season. But it means nothing, and it goes right out the window, and it shows zero progress if you can't find a way for your defense to be the story here up against Michigan. Number 2, Harbaugh not being there, and then also the pressure on Ryan Day, the coaches, are a major storyline. Because I said this yesterday, and Ohio State fans are now getting all mad at me on social media. All I simply said, it's amazing. You can't, have a conversation in this society anymore. All I said was, no one would have thought in a million years Brian Kelly would have left Notre Dame for LSU. It happened. No one thought when USC opened up that Lincoln Riley was going to leave Oklahoma. And all I said was, with how sensitive Ryan Day is and how Ohio State fans last year, before they came back and had a competitive game, which they should have won up against Georgia, before that happened, all you heard for a week, you lost back-to-back years to Ohio State. You got 5 career losses. Maybe Ryan Day isn't the guy. That's what Ohio State fans were saying. Not all, but some, and a lot of them. So now if you lose 3 straight years in a row, you're telling me on Saturday there won't be Ohio State fans, fair or not, calling for Ryan Day to get fired? Now, Ohio State's not firing Ryan Day. But if Ryan Day doesn't feel appreciated, if Ryan Day doesn't think he's getting the respect that he deserves from the fan base, and he thinks it's getting ugly, we know Texas A&M, even though he's highly compensated at Ohio State, we know A&M with that oil money could find a way to give him a blank check. I don't think it's going to happen. I said I don't think it's going to happen yesterday in terms of him leaving, but I don't think it's the craziest idea in the world. And then the third storyline, I think this is the deciding factor of the game. It's J.J. McCarthy. All throughout the year, the reason why I thought Michigan was better than Ohio State, when you break down the teams, and I do believe Michigan's a more complete team, is I trusted J.J. McCarthy more than Kyle McCord. McCarthy has not played well as of late. The last 2 weeks with a chance to maybe go win a Heisman. Against Penn State, they ran the ball. Against Maryland, they did not pop on the offensive side of the ball at the quarterback position. McCarthy last year made some big throws, made some big plays. And I really do determine McCarthy making a big play in this game, whether it's to Cornelius Johnson or whether it's to Colston Loveland, will ultimately determine if Michigan beats Ohio State for the 3rd straight year in a row. So I can't wait for this game. I think Michigan's going to win the game. I think we're going to have a really good game this year that comes right down to the end. I could see this being a 3-point game, 4-point game, 7-point game. It's going to be a touchdown or less. Right now, I'm going to go Michigan 27, Ohio State 20. We'll take a break on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. One of my favorite college football analysts in the country is going to join us on the other side. He's a former Ohio State defensive player, now is a superstar on NBC, and that is Joshua Perry, who will join us when the Zach Gelb Show continues on a very busy Wednesday edition in 5 minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio. here's Zach Gelb.
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We are all set for the game between Ohio State and Michigan. I fly out to Ann Arbor Friday morning, and I'll be watching the game on Saturday and can't wait for it. Let's go out to the guest line right now and welcome in a national champion linebacker from the Ohio State, now a superstar in the media world for NBC, and that is our pal in Joshua Perry. Josh, always appreciate the time. Thanks for doing this. Happy Thanksgiving, and how are you?
Hey, happy Thanksgiving to you as well. I'm doing well. A lot of anticipation. You know how this thing goes. I'm super excited for the game this weekend.
So you're usually pretty good at keeping it neutral, and you've been afraid to call out Ohio State. You've been afraid, haven't been afraid to call out Michigan throughout the years. But with all that has transpired in the last few weeks and the build-up to this game and how there's just more layers that unfold day by day, as an Ohio State guy, just what are you feeling about this game this time before Michigan goes out on the field against Ohio State on Saturday?
Well, first off, man, the fan bases are at each other right now in a way that we haven't seen in a while. That makes social media a little bit fun. There's some parts of the new X, Twitter as it was known, that people should probably avoid in the lead up to this game. But I think about the locker rooms at a time like this. And for Michigan, it's a very unique situation with Jim Harbaugh available to coach throughout the week, but not there on game day. I'm sure those guys have an extra layer of motivation that they probably didn't need anyway going into that game. And I'm curious to see how they will leverage that. And then I think for Ohio State, it's, they've heard it for 2 years now. You're not tough enough. You can't beat Michigan. They've got your number. Now they got to go on the road with the quarterback who's never played in this rivalry and get the job done. And so I think for either one of these teams, there's plenty of motivation. I also think that there are some points where they're looking at one another and saying, okay, we're going to have to overcome in this one if we're going to be successful and get the win.
We all know the improvement the Ohio State defense and the changes that the Ohio State defense has made this year, and it's the strength of this team. The last 2 years, they got dominated in the trenches by Michigan. It's no secret. But what are you seeing this time around from the Ohio State defense that maybe gives you confidence up against still a very good and lethal Michigan offense?
Well, I think they're confident, personally. I think they have a different expectation this year. I think last year they were really trying to feel their way through a new defensive system, and they were giving up plays and they'd line back up, and I'm not exactly sure they truly believed what they were running, and I think this year they really believe that. I can also look at a lot of positions where it feels like they've upgraded, and I don't think that the edges are as good as people would have anticipated in terms of sack numbers, but they're guys that get a ton of pressure on the interior of the defensive line. They've been extremely disruptive all year long. And I think the secondary is where the biggest change has come. They're going to be down Lathan Ransom in this game, and I think that's huge at the safety position. But Davison Igbinosun's a guy who, maybe a little too aggressive in coverage sometimes, but he plays with an edge that wasn't there before. Denzel Burke is back to looking like a first-round pick. And I really like what Sonny Styles provides in terms of some versatility on the defense there. And so I think it's a combination of personnel upgrades, but also a combination of the belief that they have in what they're doing now.
This has been, Joshua Perry, a very open year for the Heisman Trophy. Usually at this time of the year, you have an idea of who's going to win it. I personally think that if Washington or Oregon wins the Pac-12, whichever one, whoever the quarterback is, Penix or Nix, of the winning team in the Pac-12 will get the Heisman Trophy this year. We've seen a big push for Jaden Daniels out of LSU. I look though at Marvin Harrison Jr. He's so important to that team. He is their identity on the offensive side of the ball. Harrison goes off for, let's say, 150 yards and 2 touchdowns on Saturday. Do you still think he has a chance to go win the Heisman Trophy?
Yeah, he's in it if that's the case. And I'm not exactly sure he should win, if I'm being completely honest about it. I think that his resume has spoken enough to him being a guy who should have an invite to New York. I'm not a Heisman voter, but if I was, I'd have Jaden Daniels at the top of my list. And I really don't care about his team record. It's not his fault that he doesn't play defense, right? Like, I don't give a damn about the way that they have looked. What he has done this year has been remarkable. It's a similar thing for Marvin, where people try to knock him. So like, in the Notre Dame game, his numbers weren't great. Well, he was, busted up for part of that game, and they used him as a decoy for a lot of the end of that game. It's like, well, against Minnesota, only had 3 catches for 30 yards. I'm like, well, they blanket cover him, quite frankly. If he had a Heisman quarterback throwing to him, maybe the conversation's a little bit different right now. And I think when you distill it down to watching the tape and seeing what he does, he's one of the best players in the country, without a doubt. So not exactly sure it's his trophy, but I do think that he's earned the right to be in New York.
We know that Ryan Day has only lost 6 games as the coach of the Buckeyes. You, though, lose this game on Saturday. That's 3 straight to Michigan. You already heard some of the conversation last year. Maybe they need to move on from Ryan Day. I don't think he's in danger of losing his job. But with that being said, maybe he starts to look elsewhere. We've seen crazier things happen before in the sport. What would you say to the Ohio State fan on Saturday if they lose that's ready to move on from Ryan Day?
Yeah, it's going to be tough, right? I don't think you're going to be able to really break through to anybody, but you mentioned it, right? It'd be his 7th loss. It'd be only his 3rd Big Ten loss. And the hard part is all 3 Big Ten losses would have come to University of Michigan, but I don't know where you're going to go and find an upgrade. Like, I don't think you're going to go out in the market and find a coach that is better than Ryan Day. This is a program that's still recruiting well. They're nationally relevant. And I would also take a look to next year where things kind of change a little bit, and you're going to have a path to the college football playoff every year. And once you get there, you never know what happens. They were a missed field goal away from beating Georgia last year. And so I think the idea is, as long as your program is nationally relevant, it'd be really difficult to make that move. Now, if you see recruiting's taking a nosedive and the quality of play on the field is getting to a point where you think next year it might be that 3, 4, 5 loss type of team, then maybe you try to get ahead of it and make a change. But the way I see things going right now, it's really difficult to entertain any conversations that Ryan Day shouldn't be the head coach of Ohio State.
How much do you think the sign stealing scandal impacted the results of these games the last 2 years in Ohio State and Michigan?
I'll break it down like this: I think that Michigan found value in Connor Stallions and whatever his work was because he had access to the head coach and the 2 coordinators on game day. It's not something we typically see of a person in his role. I also do think that the ability to know what somebody's getting ready to do can help. If you know that there's an edge pressure coming, you're not going to run a rollout right into edge pressure. If you know a team is getting ready to run, then you're probably not going to call double coverage on their best wide receiver. Those things are apparent. I also flip on the tape from the last 2 years, and guys running in and out of gaps like they were doing for Ohio State when Donovan was breaking all those long runs, that didn't come from sign stealing. Like, there's nothing to me that indicates that they knew what was coming. Ohio State's players just didn't execute. And I think there has to be an educated balance when we talk about this. People are up in arms because there is an advantage. That's why people try to decode signs the way that they do legally. And to step over the bounds of that certainly would bother me. But I'm not going to be the guy to sit here and try to make everybody feel better by saying, well, the only reason that ain't the truth. It's just not reality here. And I think people need to get over that part as well leading into Saturday and understand that the best team on the field on Saturday is going to win the football game.
Who wins the game on Saturday?
I got Ohio State winning, and I think it's going to be an extremely close one. But I've seen a different demeanor from Ryan Day this year. I know we all joke about the Lou Holtz thing, but he's coached with a lot more emotion. I think he's actually been much harder on guys in public when we can see the cameras on him than he's been in the past. And I think the play design has been on point pretty much all season long. I also think there's an opportunity for Ohio State's defense for the last 2 years of what they've heard coming out of this game. Michigan's offensive line maybe isn't as good as we had imagined, and J.J. McCarthy just hasn't looked like himself, and I think they've got a plan for that. I think it's a really close game. I heard you talking about it in the last segment. I don't think it even gets to 27. I could be completely wrong about that, but I'm looking somewhere in the range of, like a 21-17 type of game, hard fought, 2 teams that I believe are national championship contenders that are running head first into each other on Saturday.
Yeah, I really think this game comes down to the big play. And can Ohio State stop the big play this year? Cornelius Johnson, Colston Loveland, we know what Corum could do, and it's his birthday. Donovan Edwards, and last year, to McCarthy's credit, there was a lot of questions. Can he elevate up against Ohio State? And last year he did, and he kind of put the team on his back, and they didn't even have Corum last year.
Yeah, it was definitely the case there. And you can even boil it down too. I'm glad you mentioned the big play. J.J. McCarthy, 50% completion in that game. And typically when you hold a quarterback, especially as talented as he is,
you win.
50% completion, you win.
Yeah.
But it was the idea that they couldn't get guys on the ground. They let the ball go over their head, and they can't do that.
Wrapping up with Josh Perry right now. Let me just get a few thoughts from you from the rest of the games this weekend. Alabama, Auburn. Auburn just lost last weekend. You look at Alabama. If they win the SEC, they win the Iron Bowl, then they go on to beat Georgia. Do you think they're a lock to be one of the last 4 teams standing in the college football playoff?
They got to be. If they win the SEC, they got to be in. And this is what I keep telling people. I was a part of one of these teams. I lost a game in week 2, the year I won a national title in 2014. We lost to a Virginia Tech team that was not very good, just over 500. And if people held against us the idea that we lost in week 2, we would not have been in the playoff picture. And I think that teams evolve and change. And I'll do this just to make it as simple as possible. Beginning of the year, coming in, Quinn Ewers, Heisman Trophy candidate. Now, toward the end of the year, I don't think anybody thinks Jalen Milroe is going to win it, but there are odds out for him to win that award because these are teams that are different, and he's playing at a much higher level, and that defense is playing with much more confidence. And Texas looks a little bit different right now as well. I would just say that we would have to grade Alabama on what we've seen over the back half of the year. And if they can beat Georgia, everybody thinks that Georgia's got a chance to win their third title in a row. You'd have to put them in.
But if Bama gets in, does that mean Texas should also get in? Because Texas, like you said, did beat Alabama back in week 2, and they beat them in Tuscaloosa by 10 points. So if it comes down to Bama or Texas, both won losses, both winning their conference champions, let's just say, do you think Alabama still gets in over Texas?
I would have to see how they did it, right? Like, how good did Texas look in a conference championship game? And I think that would be the deciding factor. I believe in head-to-head matchups to a degree, and people are like, oh, why do we even play the games? I understand that. Week 2 was a long time ago.
Yeah.
A lot of things have changed since then, and that's my biggest point about it is you would have to grade Texas right now. If you think that they're one of the 4 best teams, you put them in. If you think Alabama's a better team than Texas right now, then I think they got to go in there.
What about Florida State? Because they just lost their quarterback, Jordan Travis. I don't know how to evaluate them, but if they win the next 2 weeks and they take down top 10 Louisville in an ACC championship, which I think Louisville is a good program, but no one thinks they're a great team this year. And you look at it, Florida State, would the committee really keep out an undefeated team going into the playoff that's in the ACC?
Yeah, it'd be really difficult. Like, I could see a scenario where, they beat Louisville and it's a 10-7 game and they would be like, this team is not it.
Yeah.
While everybody else played really well in that last weekend, right? Like, I think that could be a realistic possibility. But once again, I don't think that we should hold the idea that Florida State's going to be playing with a backup quarterback against them because my year, Cardale Jones, third string guy, right? Like,
and he wasn't there for school. We all know that. We remember that great line.
No, I tell you that from a personal experience with Cardale. But part of how we got into though was the fact that we won 59-0 against Wisconsin, the Big Ten championship. That was a top 15 team at the time, right? Like, eye test really mattered to those people. So all the picture that I'm trying to paint is we need to take a realistic snapshot of what each of these teams are after that last weekend, and then we have to pick who the 4 best teams are.
Well, let me ask you this then. Last thing I'll ask Joshua Perry. And we got Oregon State, Oregon this weekend, right? The Pac-12. We all want to see Oregon and Washington again in the Pac-12 championship. One of the best games, if not the best game of the college football season. Who do you think, the way this plays out the next 2 weeks, that will be the last 4 teams standing?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think that if there's one team that could beat Georgia, it would be Alabama, but Georgia is absolutely rolling right now. So I got to roll with them. I picked Ohio State to win this weekend, so Ohio State's going to be in, no doubt. It's hard for me because Oregon has not really played a tough schedule down the stretch, but they've looked really good doing it. And if I had to put my money in, I would certainly put it there on Oregon. And then this is the tough spot is, do we like a Texas or do we like a Florida State the way that things stand? And I would have to lean Florida State if they're able to get the job done. And they've got some aliens on offense too that can give people a lot of issues, even with a backup quarterback. So it's going to be a unique picture here, man. Like, I can't wait to see what this thing looks like because we got some opportunity for chaos here.
And that's the thing. I love the chaos, and going to 12 teams next year put some bumpers up on this game where even though no one wants to lose Ohio State, Michigan, you could afford to lose and back your way in a 12-team playoff.
Yeah, that's the idea that I think is troubling for a lot of people is the feeling that it doesn't matter as much. But I would tell people, and I think it's an obligation for some of us who cover the sport, is it matters as much as we want to make it matter. It matters as much as we want to talk and celebrate it. And so for that game, I know it's always going to matter. Like the SEC championship, if it's 2 teams that are legit national title contenders, I think it really matters for a lot of people. But yeah, it's definitely going to be different because we don't get to opine about the chaos scenarios and less content for the shows, I guess.
Joshua Perry, appreciate the time. Keep on kicking ass and taking names for NBC. Really enjoyed the coverage with this booth this year. Thank you.
Hey, I appreciate you guys. Take care.
There you go. Joshua Perry joining us. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Always love our conversations with him. We'll take a break. When we come on back, we got to chat some NFL. When we look at the second-place teams in the league right now, who is a team in the NFL that's not in first that maybe we should buy stock in, and they're going to get on a little bit of a run and maybe find a way to shock some people and get to the Super Bowl. We'll discuss that on the other side. But first up, we had the latest CBS Sports Radio update with El Capitan, Marco Belletti.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
And Zach, we're sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Insurance for motorcycles, boats, and RVs. For protection on the road and on the water, see how much you could save at 1-800-PROGRESSIVE and Progressive.com. Well, the Amazon documentary Bye Bye Barry on Barry Sanders has been released to great reviews, but not everyone seems to be pleased with the documentary. Former Lions quarterback Scott Mitchell took to social media after hearing the criticism coming his way. This is courtesy of Boomer and Gio with Boomer Esiason and Greg Giannotti on WFAN in New York.
I just got kind of tired of hearing about how I was the problem with things in Detroit, and that if Barry just had a quarterback, he would have been a Super Bowl winner, that it was kind of that missing piece. And I just felt like I had to defend myself.
But Mitchell wasn't done there.
And every time we won, there was this pristine picture of Barry Sanders on the front page, and every time we lost, I'm getting ripped apart by 5 guys, and I was okay with that. I really was, and I understood, the nature of it. I just wanted more time.
College hoops were at the break. Number 1 Kansas, number 7 Tennessee tied at 35. One final. North Carolina thumped Northern Iowa 91-69. I'm Marco Belletti.
Have a take. The Jim Rome Show. Weekday afternoons on CBS Sports Radio. CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio.
If you're Cleveland, I think you got to make one phone call. Because the Cleveland Browns, if they had a quarterback, they would be a bona fide Super Bowl contender. You got to call Tom Brady. You have to. And as crazy as this seems, the NFL that was the NFL, the 20 years Tom Brady played in it, Cleveland wasn't a winning destination. But now they are. And I legitimately think that if Tom Brady walked into the Browns facility tomorrow, he could win a Super Bowl this year.
This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio, and it's time to Ask the Pros, where you, the listener, gets to ask us a question. It's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag #AskThePros. Be listening later in the show when we might answer your question. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. So yesterday we had Drew Brees on, and I even said to him, I know you haven't played since 2020, but I got to ask you the question, would you have any interest potentially joining the Cleveland Browns? And he goes, oh, my wife's from Cleveland, kind of laughed, and then said, nah, it's just not for me anymore. I can't do it. Now, I guess he was on one of these car wash tours, and he goes on a few other shows. I think he did this with Evan Cohen. And he revealed in an interview with Evan Cohen that his right shoulder is so messed up that when he throws in the backyard with his kids, and right, you always see those videos of Drew Brees throwing with his kids, like a Nerf football from a few years ago, but now he actually uses his left hand to throw because his right arm and right shoulder is so messed up. I wonder what Drew Brees is like throwing lefty now. But when he has catch with his kids, he now goes left-handed because of how messed up from playing his right arm, he can't throw a football anymore, which is just wild. So clearly he's out of the running, which I didn't think there was much of a running anyway, to be the next quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. But most of the times with how this happens, and we saw it in week 1 with the Jets, a lot of these teams are afraid to make a move, or they complicate and they think they can't make a move because of what their system is. I think that's a bunch of nonsense. Now, I'm not saying it's not important. You got to get the quarterback up to speed and all that. But the last 2 years, we've seen Baker Mayfield come right on over from the Panthers to the Rams and have success with barely knowing the playbook. And just this year, you've seen Josh Dobbs get traded on a Tuesday, and then on Sunday, he comes in off the bench and lights it up for the Minnesota Vikings. So I don't think the Jets should just trot out Zach Wilson. They're not anymore. They're going to Tim Boyle and then eventually Trevor Siemian, but it took forever, and it didn't make sense why they waited. And for teams like the Bengals and the Browns, Now, for the Bengals, I really do believe, even though the Bengals have a good defense, you got Jamar Chase, T. Higgins will see if he get healthy, and you got Joe Mixon. I think the Bengals are going to bottom out the rest of the year. Because without Joe Burrow, even though that team is good, that team's lost without Joe Burrow. And I have zero expectation for Jake Browning, who even when he came in up against the Ravens, he's still competent. But on the flip side, the Browns at 7-3, in a year where really it's just the Chiefs and the Ravens are the only two teams that I feel good about in the AFC, and both those teams have some flaws. If the Browns just had a quarterback, they could be a Super Bowl team, even with losing Nick Chubb. They got a great defense, a kick-ass defense, number one defense in the league. Myles Garrett's playing like he's an MVP. And on the offensive line, their line is really damn good even with injuries. But they just don't have a quarterback. Watson, even when he was playing, wasn't playing well. But what are you going to do? You traded all the picks and you gave him the guaranteed contract. So now you have Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who showed up late, and P.J. Walker, who's won you 2 games this year, but they don't believe in him. And that's why I said earlier in the week, they should be calling Brady and begging Brady every day. I don't think Brady eventually says yes. But outside of that, it doesn't seem like Matt Ryan has any interest. Tiki Barber, who works right down the hall, works with Matt each and every Sunday. I asked him, hey, Tiki, you think Matt Ryan's coming back? He said no for the Jets. And I asked him again with the Bengals and the Browns, and Tiki said no. So I don't know if there's an option out there. But if we have to really watch Joe Flacco in a few weeks get elevated from the practice squad and start for the Cleveland Browns, woof, woof. And that's going to be really ugly. That's not going to be, here we go, Brownies, here we go, hoo, hoo. That's going to be, here we go, Brownies, here we go. Oh, no, woof, woof. That's what it's going to turn into. So it's a shame when there is such a great team and they have the ability, and we've seen this before in the sport, where there's been great teams, they just can't figure out the quarterback. But that's where the Browns are right now. With that being said, though, let's get into the bigger topic. When you look at these teams that are in second place right now in the NFL, and you go through the AFC, the Dolphins are in first place in the AFC East. The Ravens are in first place in the AFC North. Jacksonville in the South. Kansas City in the West. The Eagles in the East. The Lions in the North. Saints in the South. And then the 49ers in the West. When you evaluate all these second place teams, who's the team that you're most buying stock in? And right now, I guess in the NFC, you got to say the Cowboys. Now, with that being said, I don't buy that the Cowboys are this great football team. I think the Cowboys have a limitation of just getting to the second round of the playoffs. And the Eagles are better in the NFC. The 49ers are better in the NFC. And then also, you do have the Detroit Lions who are better in the NFC. But if this comes into a second place conversation and those 3 teams go down, let's say, and the Cowboys are then that 4th best team in the NFC. Minnesota is going to be in the playoffs. Their defense has improved under Brian Flores. Offensively, Josh Dobbs has been good enough, but I don't think you're going to see Josh Dobbs play at this great level down the stretch for the rest of the season. They benefit from having an easier schedule. Atlanta, I can't trust that quarterback situation, and I can't trust Arthur Smith right now. And you look at Seattle, that's like the one team where I was really high on Seattle going into this year, where I thought they could be the 3rd best team, and I thought they were the 3rd best team in the NFC behind Philly and behind San Francisco. Geno Smith's just been too up and down for me this year. Now, that team, even though their running backs have been injured with Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker too, they got the 3 wide receivers in DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith-Njigba, and their secondary is young, up and coming, and really fun. But in this league, the quarterback matters. And even though I think Dak Prescott has his flaws, even though I think Dak Prescott is just stuck on being a good quarterback, and he doesn't play consistently in the postseason, you saw it last year, beats the snot out of an 8-9 49ers team, 8-9 Buccaneers team, and then you go up against the 49ers, and that was a winnable game. And you didn't even have to be great. But you couldn't even be average in that game. You couldn't even be good. But if you ask me, Zach, would you rather have Dak Prescott or Geno Smith? It's not even close. It's Dak Prescott. And the Cowboys are a better team than the Seattle Seahawks. So I guess in the NFC, out of the second place teams, I've had to sprinkle a few dollars on maybe a future, even though I would hold my nose doing so and it'd go against everything I said about the Dallas Cowboys, you would put a few dollars down on the Dallas Cowboys. Now, in the AFC, I think it's tough because you have the Bills at 6-5. You got the Browns at 7-3, the Texans at 6-4, and now all of a sudden, Broncos, let's give them the edge over the Raiders. The Broncos are now a 5-5 team with Sean Payton and Russell Wilson starting to find something. They've been solid. They've been good. I'm not ready to say they're great. I'm not ready to say that they're back, but they're showing that they're going to get a second year. And when you go through the Broncos, I'm still not believing in them in making the playoffs this year. And I know it shouldn't matter how you win in the NFL, but the last 2 weeks, they did look like they were a better team than Buffalo. But McDermott, he cost them the game because Sean Payton was an idiot. And he starts running his kicker after taking a kneel down, and he misses the kick. But then McDermott had 12 men on the field. So in a game where it looked like the Broncos were about to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, it ended up turning, and they ended up snatching victory from the jaws of defeat because Buffalo matched their incompetence. But with that being said, even though Buffalo just lost to Denver, I would still trust, out of all the second-place teams in the AFC, if it came down to Buffalo and Denver, I would trust Buffalo more. But I look at the other two spots. The Texans will make the playoffs. I'm confident in saying the Texans will make the playoffs. DeMeco Ryans going to win Coach of the Year. C.J. Stroud is going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. He may win MVP of the year. He may. He'll be in the conversation. But I just kind of still give the edge in terms of the second-place teams in the AFC to Cleveland and Buffalo. Because at least I know with Cleveland, it's going to be a dogfight every time you go up against them. And eventually there's going to be a game where their defense falls apart. You saw it against Indianapolis this year. But those are going to be anomalies. Their defense is going to be so tough to defeat. It's just, can they find any success on the offensive side of the ball without their starting running back and without their starting quarterback? But for Buffalo, I'm not ready to jump back in on them yet. And I thought it was laughable when Josh Allen is saying he's back after the Jets game. It's the Jets, for crying out loud. I know you struggled with them the last 2 years, but it's still the Jets without Aaron Rodgers. That's with Aaron Rodgers there, it's a different story. But for Buffalo, this is kind of the last stand for this nucleus the way that we knew it and this group. And if they don't improve in these final few weeks in the postseason, then when you look at the Buffalo Bills, you're going to have to say, we need to retool. We need to redefine what we're doing because they've been stuck on this rut. So take away all the first-place teams in the AFC. I guess if you put a gun to my head, who's the team I trust the most still out of the second-place teams in the AFC would be Buffalo just because of Josh Allen. But I would highly consider Cleveland because of their defense. And then in the NFC, it would be the Dallas Cowboys out of all, let me be clear, the second-place teams in the NFC. Don't be tweeting me. Don't be sliding into my DMs. Oh, you actually believe in the Cowboys? Yeah. If you say Eagles goodbye, 49ers goodbye, Lions goodbye, then I'll believe in those drama Dallas choking Cowboys. You cockroaches. Back after this.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio, the day before Thanksgiving. My favorite time of the year, all about the food, family, and football. Final show of the week for us. Tomorrow, Thanksgiving, obviously. Enjoy your pedestrian turkey. I'll enjoy my lasagna. We'll get Pat Boyle's take on this coming up later on in the show. I'll probably have to fight him a little bit as Pat's with us today along with Moist Mike. Stu's out for his birthday, so happy birthday to Stuart Kovacs. And then on Friday, I'm off to Ann Arbor. Going to watch the game on Saturday between Ohio State and Michigan. 13 rows off the field. Can't wait for that. And then on Sunday, I'm flying back. I'm not doing Iron Football on Sunday. Ryan Hickey will be filling in for the 8-hour extravaganza. And once I land, I'm actually driving to Philadelphia to go check out the Buffalo Bills up against the Philadelphia Eagles. So if you want to track all my journeys this weekend, from the food starting tomorrow all the way until late Sunday evening in Philadelphia, at Zach Gelb, Twitter, Instagram, X, whatever you want to call these social media platforms these days, that's where you could always find me. All righty, I got to get to the college football playoff rankings from last night. I think there's only 8 teams that could make the college football playoff. Now, that's not the big, bold take. That's not, wow, what a great take from the guy that's paid to give you takes here on CBS Sports Radio. But you have Georgia in at 1 right now, Ohio State 2, Michigan 3, Washington 4, Florida State 5, Oregon 6, Texas 7, Alabama 8. The big takeaway from last night is Washington finally in the top 4, long overdue. Florida State out of the top 4, even though they didn't lose over the weekend, but they suffered a big loss with their quarterback in Jordan Travis. I know a lot of Texas fans are probably going to be mad at me, and I would be mad at myself too. And I'm not saying this is right, but there's a lot of times in sports you have to look at what will happen and what should happen. And yes, Texas wins out. They win the Big 12, and I predicted Texas to win the Big 12 before the start of the season. And Alabama wins out, and they defeat Georgia. Texas still should get in over Alabama because they did go up against one another in week 2, and Texas did go to Tuscaloosa, and they defeated Alabama by 10 points. And I said this last week, and I'll say it again, and I'll keep on saying it. Even though that's what I think should happen, that Texas should get in over Alabama, I don't think it will happen. And I know guys like Barrett Sallee, who I like a lot and does a good job last week, could say, well, it's not as if Texas doesn't have a brand and this is just them putting the Alabama brand in. Like, there's enough attractive reasons to watch and to want to see Texas in the college football playoff. Totally get that. And we know the brand of Texas is a behemoth, just like the brand of Alabama is a juggernaut as well. But there is no way, a 0.0% chance, that if Alabama wins the Iron Bowl this weekend and then defeats the best team in the country in Georgia, and they have one loss that occurred in September, there's no way the guys in charge of the College Football Playoff Committee don't find a way to put Alabama in the top 4. I really do believe these are the only 3 things that you could say with great certainty going into the final 2 weeks of the season. The winner of the SEC championship game will be in the college football playoff. Whoever wins on Saturday between Michigan and Ohio State will be in the college football playoff. And then whoever wins the Pac-12 championship, assuming it's Washington or Oregon, will be in the college football playoff. I feel very confident in saying, and this is not crazy, Georgia or Alabama, one gets in. Washington or Oregon, one gets in. And then Michigan or Ohio State, one gets in. So then, fair or not, it's going to create the conversation. What happens? Florida State wins out, and they're undefeated. What happens? Texas wins out, and they are one-loss Big 12 champ. Now, you would probably say Florida State gets in because they're undefeated and the ACC champs. And Texas, even though they beat Alabama, they lost the game this year. I think that's when it's going to be fascinating for the committee, because it really does determine, more so, I guess, up against Louisville. And then I guess you could say this weekend, too, for Florida State, how the backup quarterback does look. Because if Florida State kind of limps to the finish line and limps to being undefeated, I still think it's very tough to not put them in the top 4. But Roadmaker goes out there and lights it up against Florida, lights it up against Louisville. How are you going to keep this team out of it? Because Florida State, they may not be the best team in college football, but they're one of the toughest teams in college football. What they did to LSU in the second half, they embarrassed them. They pantsed them. And going into that game, we all thought LSU was one of the better teams in the country. And against Clemson, What do good teams do? Find a way to win when they don't play their best. That's what Florida State did. Same thing happened last week in the craziness, or 2 weeks ago, the craziness in the end of that Miami game. So that's going to be a debate. However you want to slice it. You want to tell me Georgia wins or Alabama wins? It doesn't matter. Whoever wins that SEC championship game is going to the college football playoff. Whoever wins Ohio State, Michigan is going to the college football playoff. Washington or Oregon, whoever wins the Pac-12 is going to the college football playoff. And this is going to be one of the more intense debates that we've had, Florida State or Texas. And I could toss and turn, and I could give you an argument for Texas. I give you the argument for Florida State. I would think, though, undefeated Florida State would still get in. And then Texas, could you imagine Texas fans? We're back with Sam Ehlinger, and you weren't actually back. Now you have a flag to place in the field and say, we're back, we're Texas, going into the SEC, rah, rah, here we go. And you only lost one game this year? That's it, one game this year you lose? To Oklahoma and Red River, like one game you lose. One. And you go on to win the Big 12. You go back in week 2, you beat Alabama, and you don't get in the college football playoff. You would have told me that going into Red River, that Texas would only lose one game this year and already knowing they beat Alabama and they don't get in the college football playoff and they win the Big 12, I would have never believed it. So I really do believe with how this plays out, barring the greatest chaos that we've ever seen, the final spot is coming down to Florida State or Texas. And I know there's going to be some people that are going to say, this is why it's great that we're going to 12 teams. This won't be an argument next year. And I push back at that. I'm not a fan of the 12-team playoff. For a while, I said, let's expand to 8. And this is when there was 5 Power 5 conferences, not knowing the Pac-12 would eventually turn into the Tupac moving forward, right? The Perloff line. But for years, I said, 8 teams, fine. 5 Power 5 conference champs. The non-Power 5 conference champ group of 5 school. And then you have the 2 wild card spots. You get to 8, you're good. But then as you see this play out throughout the years, there hasn't been a year where I've said, man, we need more than 4 teams. This could actually be the year. But just because you say that, it doesn't mean we need to go to 12, which I've already lost that fight. They're going to 12. Going to 6, going to 8 at most would be fine, and I would be okay losing that argument, and I could meet you a little bit. But going right to 12, it takes away from the regular season. And before you say, but Zach, all these other sports, they had 8 teams from this conference, 8 teams from that conference that get in. And how many times do we sit here and go, man, the NBA regular season product is trash? How many times do we sit here and we go, the NBA regular season product is terrible? And not only do they put 8 teams in from the East, 8 teams in from the West, they also have this play-in nonsense where all you got to be is in the top 10 in the conference and you still got a chance. The regular season matters like no other in college football. You want to put some bumpers up, some slight bumpers, when y'all start to bowl a little bit, everyone likes the bumpers up. I understand. You want to give me 6 teams, 8 teams, I can live with that. But going to 12, I'm not saying Michigan, Ohio State has no meaning. I'm not saying, right, these rivalry games have no meaning, but it does take the meaning away a little bit because, yes, you get the luxury of not being on one week. You get the luxury of maybe even dropping 2. Like Ohio State, Michigan, they lose 2 games a season. They're getting in every damn year in a 12-team playoff. So this year, it's really like chaos that we've never seen because last year, they made it easy. Like Nick Saban's complaining, we would be the favorite against any of these teams, blah, 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 blah. Nick, you were the favorite twice last year and lost. So even though, maybe Alabama would have defeated TCU on a neutral playing field, you didn't have the resume. You weren't deserving of being one of the top 4 teams last year. And everyone stubbed their toe. But this year now, with literally 2 weeks remaining, everyone's not going to stub their toe. Now, the committee may be sitting there saying, I would love Florida State to go down, or I would love Texas to go down, because then it creates an easier argument. But there's no doubt about it, fair or not, Alabama or Georgia are getting in, one of them. Michigan, Ohio State, getting in, one of them. And then Washington or Oregon, one of them, get it in. So those three things are a given, and it could come down to maybe the most, in the final installment of the 14 playoff, maybe the most intense college football debate that we've ever seen behind two big brands, two passionate fan bases, and two teams that have arguments to be made for Texas and Florida State. And also, you still have the Alabama factor. Because Alabama deserves the benefit of the doubt. Alabama's in the SEC. Some view Alabama as polarizing. You could legitimately argue, though, like let's say Bama beats Georgia. Let's go Michigan beats Ohio State. Oregon beats Washington, just for argument's sake. And then Texas and Florida State both run the table the rest of the way. You should say, Zach, well, you shouldn't just throw Alabama in. And this should be a conversation for the final two spots. Alabama, Florida State, and Texas. But I just don't see a way that the committee is not going to put Alabama in. That's just the way that I look at it. And really, it's kind of crazy when you look at Alabama. They still got to beat Georgia. They lose to Auburn this weekend after what Auburn did last weekend in pathetic fashion. If Bama loses this weekend, it would really fit into the unpredictability about Alabama this season. But I always give the benefit of the doubt to Alabama. This year, though, I didn't. I did not put Alabama in my top four this year. I think that's the first time in 7 years or whatever that I did not put Alabama in the top four. I thought there were signs to question Alabama this year. I trusted LSU more than Alabama. I was wrong. I was an idiot. Sorry, happens. But Alabama looked dead a few weeks ago. And they looked like they were about to get dragged. I think it was against Tennessee, where they were trailing at halftime. And then in the third quarter, I remember I was in the airport eating a pizza. And I'm waiting for my flight. And I got a drink. And then by the time the third quarter ends, they're like, all right, we're going to get ready to board this plane and go back to New York. I'm like, Alabama's now in control. Their season was on life support. We were ready to pull the plug, say goodbye to Alabama, and they haven't lost. And then a little bit of a close game against LSU. I laid the money on Alabama. Bama beats LSU. And they crushed them in the second half. And that defense is great. We knew that defense was great going into this year. And Jalen Milroe, after getting benched, has really utilized his legs and has not cost him in turnovers. I still think Georgia's going to beat Alabama, but I do believe that's going to be a heck of an SEC championship game in 2 weeks. So if you ask me right now, Zach, who do you think are going to be the last four teams remaining? These will be my four. Georgia, Michigan, Oregon, and Washington. I love both those programs. And I love Lanning, and I love DeBoer. And Lanning, I said this to him on the air, he is a football psycho. He really is. DJ Ungale's brother plays for Oregon. And he said in a joking tone, but DJ Ungale is the quarterback for Oregon State. And he goes, what's your message to the brother that plays the defense side of the ball? Hit your brother. He was kidding, but he's kind of not. I love that from Dan Lanning. I would side with Oregon right now, slightly splitting hairs over Washington. And then for that fourth spot, it would not surprise me if Florida State stubs their toe against Louisville. I could see that after losing your quarterback, Jordan Travis. It's tough, and I love Norvell, and I love Jared Verse. And they got some dogs on Florida State. But I think Florida State's going to do the committee a favor in the AC championship game, and I would put Texas in right now. I think Texas runs the table and wins the Big 12. So those would be my final four teams where we stand. Yes, Hampton?
So you think a one-loss Texas over a one-loss Ohio State?
Yes, because Texas beat Alabama and Texas won would win the Big 12 under that. I don't think there's an argument. And their only
loss was a last-second come from behind, almost miracle against Oklahoma.
Yeah, so I don't think, like last year, there was a way for Ohio State to get in because everyone not only stubbed their toe, fell down and needed help getting up. It was so... Anytime you fell in love with someone last year for that fourth spot in college football, they disappointed you and put their season right down the drain. That's not going to happen this year. It's not. You're going to need Florida State to lose. You're going to need Texas to also lose. It's just, I don't think it's going to happen.
I could see maybe an Oregon State-Oregon stunner because you just
That's
never
fair.
know, right? And if Oregon has that second loss and then they beat Washington
Well, then
in the
Oregon's
championship.
out.
Right, but then if they beat Washington, then maybe Washington's out too, depending on how things play out otherwise.
So you're saying Washington's one loss
Is in the
would be
championship
to
to
Oregon.
Oregon.
Well, wouldn't it be then like TCU last year, where TCU loses to Kansas State in the Big 12 championship, and then TCU still got in?
It certainly could. It depends on what happens around.
So what's the most chaotic? I know you love chaos.
Oh.
You're a freak.
Yeah.
What do you think the most chaos would be?
The most chaos, I think, to me would be Ohio State wins, because I think people think that Michigan is better.
Okay.
So then maybe Michigan can still sneak in. Alabama beats Georgia, because now you have 2 one-loss SEC teams.
Yeah.
FSU stays undefeated.
Texas?
Texas wins with 1 loss, and Oregon beats Washington, so they both have 1 loss. So you got a bunch of undefeateds, a bunch of 1-loss teams, and you can just put, honestly, anybody in.
So that's a lot to process. What I will say is this, though, just to kind of simplify it. You said, what about Ohio State with 1 loss, not having a conference championship? If we got to a way where there's a 1-loss non-conference champion, wouldn't it be Georgia? Like Georgia loses to
100%,
Alabama.
100%.
And let's say they lose by 3. And I'm saying if a path opens up, even with Georgia's schedule not being that great, you're telling me, let's just say it comes down to 1 loss Georgia, 1 loss Ohio State. Georgia's getting in over Ohio State.
I honestly don't think there's a chance that Georgia doesn't get in, no matter what happens.
Oh, I do. I think there's a. If they lose to Alabama.
If they lose, I mean, unless they get blown out by Bama,
Well, put it this
which
way.
I doubt will happen, even if they lose to Bama, I think Georgia's in.
I'll even give it to you this way. That Alabama beats Georgia by 3. Like a slim margin. Even if it's a 1-point game, they lose like 27-26, Georgia. Michigan, let's just go Michigan beats Ohio State. Michigan's in. Let's say Oregon beats Washington. Oregon is in. Then you would have the road of Alabama would get in. I still think Florida State or Texas, one of those teams are going to find a way to win their conference championship, and they would get in over Georgia. Because there's no way the committee, you know what would also be a fun debate? Georgia, this would really be screw Florida State. And I like Florida State. But imagine if the committee somehow got down to an argument. Undefeated Florida State, ACC champs, 1 loss Georgia in the ACC championship game. In the SEC championship game, they lose.
I think Georgia, especially
I
because
don't
of
see how you
Jordan
keep out
Travis, I
undefeated
think a
Florida State.
1-loss non-SEC champion Georgia gets in over an undefeated ACC champion FSU without Jordan Travis.
Wow.
Because I
That
think the
would be
committee
something.
does look at the eye. I mean, they use the eye test
Yeah.
significantly, and I think that any discernible college football fan, I mean, listen, FSU beat LSU, and LSU's not nearly what we thought they were going to be, especially early in the season. So that's their big win, is LSU.
And you know what's funny? We say LSU's not what we thought going into the season. LSU may have the Heisman Trophy winner this year. They just don't play defense. Now, I got to be careful here because I'm a Heisman Trophy voter. So they don't like when you're not supposed to reveal your votes publicly. I've not made my votes yet. You're not even allowed to make your votes. I'll put it this way. I have a tough time thinking that it comes down to Washington, Oregon, let's say in the Pac-12 championship game, that the winner of that game, Bo Nix or Michael Penix, doesn't win the Heisman Trophy. That's the simplest way I could say it.
It feels to me that Bo Nix is
Without
the leader in the
incriminating
clubhouse.
myself.
Now, you don't have to agree, disagree, because you're a voter. Bo Nix feels like it's his to lose unless he gets just like absolutely smash caked in the Pac-12 championship. I think it's Bo Nix's.
Smash cake?
Yeah.
Can we go like pancake? Pancake block?
That's an old phrase from me and a buddy of
Yeah.
mine back in Arizona, smash cake.
Yeah. I saw my buddy Deion Dawkins pancake Michael Clemens. That was fun. I enjoyed watching that.
All the way down to the tunnel, too.
Clemens, he wanted that smoke, and then once Deion was ignoring him and started to bite back a little bit and bark back, found it funny how one guy was able to hold back Michael Clemens. Big Michael Clemens, who walks in every year when the season starts without a shirt on and looks like he could kick the crap out of anybody and looks like he's the Hulk. Funny how one guy's able to hold back Michael Clemens. You needed 8 to hold back Deion Dawkins.
Michael Clemens is weird. He spells his name wrong. It's Michael. He spells it EAL. Only human being I've ever seen spell
Wait,
Michael
what?
backwards.
Say this again. I
He
need to
spells
write
his
this
name Micheal.
out. Oh, okay.
Being a
AEL.
Michael,
Yeah.
I've known forever, it's Michael.
Yeah.
Michael Clemens is weird. He spells his name weird.
Yeah, he didn't want that smoke, too, of the snowman. And by the way, Michael Clemens, we're not offering you a scholarship to UArty Schno University. As the dean of UArty Schno University, we will not be accepting you as a student. Take a timeout. We come on back. What's the best rivalry in sport right now? We'll get into that conversation on the other side.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio. Here's Zach Gelb.
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. When I take a look, as we are in rivalry weekend for college football, the best rivalries in sports. You know what's crazy? NFL was actually one of the toughest ones to go through. And it's the one that we talk about and watch the most, especially on a national network like this. The one that I zeroed in on is actually Steelers-Ravens. And maybe that's like more so my lifetime. And if you ask someone that's like 55, 60, their answer could be different. But the Steelers and Ravens always, bare minimum, have solid or good teams. And in the last 20 years, for the most part, they've had really good defenses. For the Ravens, right, on offense, they had Joe Flacco. Now they have Lamar Jackson. And the Steelers had the constant in Ben Roethlisberger. But that AFC North, man, those games are vicious. Those games as a consumer are fun. Even in a league now that we demand offense, and offense, anytime you watch an AFC North showdown, defense, especially like last weekend between the Browns and the Steelers, defense always pops and reigns supreme. But Samter, like for the NFL, who are the other teams that you considered? I consider a few other rivalries. Like you could go the Cowboys against the Eagles, Cowboys against the Giants, Packers and Bears is another one. But the Bears, they can't beat the Packers. Aaron Rodgers screams, "I own you." There's nothing you could do when he was the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. So I know you could go a little bit older back, like into the 80s, and you go Cowboys, 49ers, things like that. But the one that I zeroed in on was Steelers and Ravens.
I think Chiefs Raiders has a big history as well. And I think, if you want to talk about historic versus, more current, the Cowboys and 49ers, that's got the 80s and the 90s. That's coming back again. Because every time Dak sees the 49ers, he falls flat on his face. So I feel like there's that current rivalry, but even Cowboys-Eagles, Cowboys-Giants, Cowboys, everybody in the East could be one of the top rivalries. You're looking at the AFC East. The Patriots have dominated for so long. There really doesn't feel like there's a rivalry. It used to be like Dolphins-Jets used to be a big rivalry.
Sure.
Anytime Dan Marino would just fake spike it and just embarrass the Jets. But the Patriots dominated so long, there's no rivalry there. And it doesn't feel like there's any out-of-division rivalries, really. All right, maybe Cowboys, 49ers, but that's about it. I'm going
to put Marco Belletti just walked in, has no clue what we're talking about because they have Marco doing 9,000 jobs around here. Marco, I'm going to put you on the hot seat here. NFL, what's the best rivalry in the NFL in your opinion?
Ooh. Washington, Dallas, probably.
See, you could ask it for the NFL and get a different answer from everybody because I think it matters how old you are. And also, the NFL, geography does matter in this too. Like, you could ask someone in Green Bay, what do you think the biggest rivalry is? They'd be like, Green Bay and the Bears. But then someone, like, where I live, even though I live in New York, it's like, I zeroed in on Steelers and Ravens, was the one.
That's been a great one for the last 20 years. Yeah. But it's 20 years.
And also, like I said, age
that's
matters.
Definitely part of it. You could go back to the Raiders and Chiefs. That's definitely been a good one, too. There's a lot of them throughout
Cowboys,
the NFL.
49ers, as we talked about.
Again, also something that's been in the last, say, 40 years.
Cowboys against everybody.
And that's part of it, too, because everybody hates Dallas. You go back far enough, you can go with the Cowboys and the Steelers.
Death taxes and everybody hating the Cowboys.
There's a lot of different ones. It depends on each division, too, because there's a bunch of them inside the divisions. But I kind of went through, like, just the scope of the longevity. The Steelers-Ravens is definitely the best in the last 20 years in my mind, but it's 20 years. I can't give you
and the
best all time if it's only 20 years.
And even though the Ravens are a great franchise now, they don't have the history. They're not the gold standard.
Well, they only started in 96.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. So, like, you can't – I can't take you to have the greatest ever if you've only been around for 25, 30 years. Like, it just doesn't work.
So, for baseball, I still think it's Yankees-Red Sox. I know some people will say, oh, it's lost juice. It's not as great as it once was. I still think it's the best baseball rivalry. The only one that I think rivals it are the Giants and the Dodgers.
Cardinals-Cubs is pretty close.
Yeah, you're right. Cardinals-Cubs. You are right on that. So those three, but I still go Yankees and Red Sox. The NBA, I think everyone can agree, it's still Celtics and Lakers. Like, just with the history, and then even though it carried over into a new era, when you had the Celtics and the Lakers go up against each other in the NBA Finals twice recently too, and then we all know Bird and Magic, nothing really else needs to be said.
And it also goes back further than that. You go back into, the West and the Chamberlain and the Russell. Yeah, that thing, it's just been going on forever.
NHL, I think this one's tough because if someone in the last 15 years says, what is it? I think a lot of people would say, oh, Penguins and Capitals because of Ovechkin and Crosby. But the Canadiens against the Bruins is a legendary rivalry. The last 20, 25 years or 20 years or so, the Avalanche against the Red Wings was big. The Canadiens against the Maple Leafs, those were just some that I threw out there. Boy, I know you're a hockey guy, and I'm wearing a Rangers sweatshirt today. Is there a hockey rivalry in your mind, and Boyle's younger like me, that you go, okay, that's the one that you loved watching?
Just locally, I know Rangers Islanders always is hated. But.
Yeah, I don't really hate the Islanders. I don't. Like, they're just like a little stepbrother. Both those teams have never been great at the same time. I actually hate the Devils more than I hate the Rangers. And honestly, as a Ranger fan, I hate the two teams I hate the most are the Penguins and the Washington Capitals, just because of all the playoff rivalries. College basketball, I think we could go 3-2-1 and everyone says Duke and UNC. But then for college football, the answer is Ohio State, Michigan. But you can't look past Army, Navy. You can't look past Texas, Oklahoma. And then also the Iron Bowl, which is this weekend between Alabama, Auburn. But Ohio State, Michigan could actually right now, Duke, UNC would be there. But in sports, Ohio State, Michigan actually could be the best rivalry out of them all. And the only reason I say that is because a lot of times there's rivalries and there was hatred like 20, 30 years ago. Now, with Michigan beating them the last 2 years, the whole sign-stealing scandal as well, I haven't remembered a game where there's like serious bloodbath, like we got a war coming up with the way that this is built up going into this weekend. Outside of really Duke and UNC, who just met in the Final Four, and that was it for Coach K, losing to UNC.
Now, the Michigan-Ohio State's got a lot of juice recently, and obviously you got the history.
Yeah.
Had a little bit of a dip for a little while there, but it's back.
For like 10 years.
But that's what I'm saying. But whenever there's, you're talking about two programs that are perennial powerhouses, and this game is constantly means something. So as much as, you can look at some of the other ones, the Notre Dame with the USC and all that. Like, there's a bunch of them, but they don't necessarily play every year. Then you have the lulls of who's good and who's not good. These two programs have done a nice job of staying relevant where that game always matters. And the last few years, it's had a lot of juice because Michigan's actually shown up.
And it also stinks in this never-ending and changing landscape of college athletics where a lot of these rivalries that we talk about and hype up, there's been a lot of times this year, and it's even going to happen this year with the Pac-12 basically folding, all those teams moving, some going to Big 12, some having nowhere to go, and then others going to the Big 10 and the SEC. It's like when you have all these changes, some of these rivalries are going to go away, and it's an unfortunate part. It really is.
It is. But again, that's the landscape of college football, and that's the difficulty of trying to keep the rivalries.
Like
when you, what are you going to do though? Like the only way is you're going to wind up having just giant conferences where you go, all right, it's almost like in division with the NFL. You can have it big enough where you're going to be in somewhat close enough divisions. You can play every year because it doesn't really matter. The conferences aren't going to really matter anymore. It's coming soon enough, and we're getting a lot closer than we thought.
This is the first step. They truncated it to basically now Power 5 to 4. Eventually, I think it's going to 3, and maybe it could consolidate into the haves and the have-nots one day.
That's all it is.
But I think what this is going to turn into, it's the SEC, it's the Big 10, and then we'll see what happens with everybody else, and they kind of form together.
I don't think it's going to matter as much anymore, especially when you open up the college football playoff. It doesn't really will it give you, like before, you were the Big 10 champion. Like, whoa, all right, you won the Big 10. If you're the 10 seed and you wind up winning the college football play. Who cares if you won the Big Ten or not? So the more we do this, the more we open it up. It's fine, and it's going to be fun for when the playoff comes, but it'll take away the luster of all these divisions and these conferences, and at some point we're not going to care, so it's going to be just one big free-for-all.
855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. On the board that we have right now, I see a call that has nothing to do with this topic, but I'm intrigued by this call. Lou in Rochester is saying that Josh Allen is mistreated by the media. I have to hear this. Lou, go ahead.
Hi, Zach. Because it's true. I mean, have you ever listened to Stephen A. Smith? He just loathes Josh. But anyhow, Allen's statistics this year are far better than Mahomes. He's got 29 touchdown passes, 15 interceptions. Mahomes has 18 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. But, Mahomes can do no wrong, but Allen, he sucks. Well, but he doesn't.
Well, let me just ask you this.
Elite.
Can you name a wide receiver on the Kansas City Chiefs?
Yeah, Travis Kelce. If he didn't have Kelce.
But he's a tight end.
He's a receiver. He's not a true tight end.
Okay, but put it this way. Like Gabe Davis is the second best wide receiver on the Bills. Gabe Davis, who is a good player, not a great player, would walk into Kansas City and would be their number one wide receiver because Kelsey's technically a tight end. I get what you're saying, though.
Listen, I understand. I think that the Chiefs are a flawed team, and they're showing it.
They are flawed. But what does that then make the Buffalo Bills?
Well, if they don't self-implode, they're still imploding because they have a much better quarterback. But
no one says Josh Allen sucks. No one says Josh Allen sucks, and that's where you're just so far off base. And I like Stephen A. Smith, and I watch him from time to time. I've never realized that he's had like a negative agenda against Josh Allen. Josh Allen's deserving of criticism this year. He's turned the ball over too many times. Now, it's not all him. The offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey, there's a reason he got fired. But I don't want to hear this nonsense that Josh Allen is treated unfairly. For the last 2-3 years, all we did was talk about this guy being a top 3 quarterback in the league. This is what happens. Welcome to big boy football. Buffalo Bills, welcome. You guys want to claim that you're the Kings and that you guys are this great team, blah, 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 blah. You have to win. I followed Tom Brady. Tom Brady's the best quarterback of all time, my favorite quarterback. He would lose a game in the playoffs after winning 4 or 5 Super Bowls, and you'd have jackasses like Nick Wright go, he's falling off the cliff. And Kellerman would say it too. And Rob Parker, after Brady lost the Super Bowl the second time the Giants, he'll never get back to a Super Bowl. And that's Brady who had all the championships. So when you don't have a championship, there's going to be some negative things said, especially when you've been close for that many years. We'll come on back with a news brief. Update time first. Here he is, El Capitan, Marco Belletti.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, Zach, Jim Irsay never been afraid to speak his mind, nor has he been a stranger to controversy. Now the Colts owner rehashing his 2014 arrest for DUI, where he said he pleaded guilty just to get it over with. He also said his recent hip surgery was the reason he couldn't walk the sobriety test. Also had an interesting rationale as to why he was arrested in the first place.
I am prejudiced against because I'm a rich white billionaire. If I'm just the average guy down the block, they're not pulling me in. Of course not.
Do you know what it's going to sound like if people hear you say they're prejudiced against a rich white
I don't
billionaire?
care what it sounds like. It's the truth. I don't, Andre, I could give a damn what people think, how anything sounds or sounds like. The truth is the truth, and I know the truth.
That courtesy of HBO Sports. College hoops, you got 8th-ranked Creighton in front of Loyola Chicago, 45-37 as we approach the half. Couple of finals. Top-ranked Kansas finished off number 7 Tennessee, 69-60, while North Carolina ripped Northern Iowa, 91-69. Big night in the NBA, including plenty of big matchups. You got the Celtics and the Bucks going at it in Boston. Another pair of 10-win teams with the T-Wolves welcoming in the Sixers, but Joel Embiid will not play in this one. Second half of back-to-back, dealing with hip soreness. I'm Marco Belletti.
Hey, it's Amy Lawrence. Be sure to listen to CBS Sports Radio at home. Just ask Alexa to play CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Alrighty, News Brief time. Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. Let's start with Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee Show. Aaron Rodgers says he has guilt about Zach Wilson's failure this year.
This was obviously not the way any of us thought this was going to go down. It was going to be me and my show and Zach getting to learn and watch it firsthand and not have the pressure to go out there and play. And so obviously, this is disappointing. I have some, personal guilt around the whole thing. I mean, I'm pissed that I wasn't able to play and frustrated that, if I was out there and I feel like I'd be playing well, there would be obviously different narratives around our team, and Zach would, again, have the opportunity to learn and grow and see what it looks like without the pressure on. And
is he serious? That's just like incoherent rambling from Aaron. You think Aaron Rodgers, Samter, puts his head on the pillow at night and goes, man, I'm tossing and turning that my injury is the reason why Zach Wilson's getting slammed by everybody. Zach Wilson has gotten multiple opportunities to show that he could just be average. All they asked him to be this year is average, and he can't do that? Like, it's just a society we live in now where everyone has to be guilty about something and feel guilty about something, and Rodgers tries to break from the norm of how most of society works. That's why that's alarming to me, that Rodgers even says that.
As a former Jets fan, I do believe that Rodgers actually took Zach Wilson under his wing. And even last year when they played in the preseason and had a joint practice, he seemed to really take to Zach Wilson. So part of me actually does. I think Rodgers is mentally transforming into this mentor role. He still wants to be the guy, but he's getting into that mentor role that maybe he wasn't there with Jordan Love. And he probably does feel a certain level of maybe guilt, or at the very least, that he didn't do enough to help Zach Wilson, excel.
The only one that should feel guilty is Joe Douglas. Because how you go into this season, not that anyone expects for Aaron Rodgers to get hurt, but that the guy that you traded for someone to replace Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson wasn't the guy. He lost the team last year. So now you go into the season with him being QB2, and you kept him for the entirety of the season until now, where we have to put Pat Boyle, Tim Boyle in. It's like, what are we doing here?
I still think it's purely egotistical, that response from Rodgers. I think, like you said, the whole Jordan Love thing, they drafted his replacement. He knows he only has 2 years here with the Jets. So I think he was hoping that after he got done, Zach Wilson might actually be competent, and then Rodgers can take even more credit for that as soon as he retires. Oh, yeah, I'm the reason Zach Wilson's good.
There's a 0.00001% chance that Zach Wilson was ever going to be successful again with the New York Jets after the entire locker room, and he's matured this year, I'll give him credit for that, but after last year, the entire locker room basically just gave up on him and didn't like him. Here is Shaq Leonard. He got released yesterday from the Colts, and he did a turkey drive. Nice job out of him, even though he got released. Good to still get back to the community on his release from Indianapolis.
It was the biggest surprise ever, but I don't make those decisions. It was shocking. I asked for a November meeting. I guess I got a November meeting. So I guess you got to be careful what you ask for.
And the odds right now say the Cowboys and the Eagles are the two favorites to pick him up. Both make sense. Looking for Shaq Leonard, who could still play. The question is just, can you stay healthy? Let's go to Roquan Smith. The whole hip drop tackle has been a big thing. Mark Andrews looks like he'll be done for the season. There's a slim chance he does return, according to John Harbaugh. But here's his teammate, Roquan Smith, great defensive player, on the hip drop tackle.
How else you want us to tackle? We just let the guy run past him. So I hope Mark has a speedy recovery. I pray for that. And at the end of the day, we play football. Like I said, we got pass on. We got all this stuff on for a reason.
That's a fair take. Like, every time there's an injury, now we have to have a rule change. Soon you're not going to be allowed to tackle someone. You have to walk up to the offensive player and say, let's play a game of patty cake or a rock, paper, scissors, shoot to try to tackle him. That's how it's going to turn into. Imagine. You get like Cam Hayward, big burly guy. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. I put a scissor out. Samter had paper. There we go. Winner, winner. Let's go to Nick Sirianni. A little tough to hear, but he calls out Chiefs fans walking off the field the other night on Monday Night Football after the Chiefs lost to the Eagles.
Hey, I don't hear anymore! Chiefs fans! See ya!
So he's saying, see ya to Chiefs fans. And
he says, I don't hear bleep out of you anymore, Chiefs fans. See ya.
Mm-hmm.
As if he didn't lose the Super Bowl last year.
They did. See, but this is why I'm happy, because I knew this was going to annoy Boyle. I'm going to assume Boyle doesn't like Nick Sirianni, right?
No.
You know what I said to Samter? Right before I said, I want to play this clip. Samter goes, it's not the best audio in the world. I guess I want to play it. I want to play it for one reason only. I know Boyle isn't going to like Sirianni. If I had to compare Boyle, though, to one NFL head coach, it would actually be Nick Sirianni. You and Sirianni, I'm not saying looks, but the way that you guys carry yourself. Like, you're loud. You like to scream. You like to rub it in people's faces when you're right and they're wrong. And we never know what either of you are going to say. I think you and Sirianni, two blue-collar guys, hard hat guys as well, are very similar.
All right. I mean, when you paint him in that light, I guess I'll take it. I also do like that he wears the Italian flag on his visor like a good paisan. But I just, how are you screaming?
He ate some lasagna on Thanksgiving.
You won a regular season game. Why are you screaming down the tunnel like you didn't choke away that Super Bowl?
Here is Deion Sanders, his thoughts on players decommitting. Coach Brian.
A kid ain't even faithful to his girlfriend. You think he gonna be faithful to a school? Like, come on, man. That's like an emotional thing. You know, what I wish the NCAA would do, honestly, if you're committed to somewhere, you can't go to no other visits. I wish that would be. Like, if you committed, that means you committed. You can't go no other visit. So why would you be committed, but you still letting kids go to other places? That don't make sense. So that means they just playing. They just playing. And we're not an ATM. That's not going to happen here. If you come to Colorado to play football, for me and the Colorado Buffaloes, because you really want to play football and receive a wonderful education, and all the business stuff is going to be handled on the back end if that's the case. But we are not an ATM. You're not coming here to get rich unless you really come here with a plan to go to the NFL and get your degree, not to come here and be money bag yo.
I actually sort of respect Deion for that answer. You will never hear a coach ever again in college football say they're not even loyal to their girlfriends. Why would they be loyal to their program? And also, Deion can't have it both ways. Like, if you're going to walk in and say, I'm going to bring my own Louis Vuitton in and my luggage in, right? Then if a player wants to leave, you can't really crush him for leaving as well. That's the news brief. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I do want to get to the Jim Irsay topic and his comments on his 2014 DUI arrest. We will do that before the show does end, because I think it's an important conversation to have as Jim Irsay continues to look like an idiot and a moron and a dope. And if you're not following this right now, he's actually on Twitter. And he is now firing off and tweeting a bunch of things that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So I will chime in on that. Let's do it on the other side. We'll get to take 5 as well when we come on back. And I also want to delve into a little bit the Jim Irsay comments to Andrea Kramer on Real Sports with Brian Gumbel about his 2014 DUI arrest, because it's more failure to hold yourself accountable and take responsibility from Jim Irsay. Man, I'm really hungry right now. That's an impressive eating performance by Boyle. Boyle comes in back from the break with a full plate of penne alla vodka, and I think he cleared the entire plate in about 4 or 5 minutes. That's wild. I think there's one more scoop left. Boyle didn't even offer us any. Man, what an impolite guess. Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All righty, rocking and rolling. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll get to Take 5 in just a second. John Jansen's going to join us coming up 20 minutes from now. The former Michigan offensive lineman, the host of Necessary Roughness with Lang and Jansen, to preview the big game, the game between Michigan and Ohio State, which I'll be in attendance for in the Big House on Saturday. I first, though, want to play for you before we get to Take 5, and I give you my top 5 teams in college football in the NFL. This is Andrea Kramer on Real Sports with Brian Gumbel talking to Colts owner Jim Irsay on his 2014 DUI arrest. Listen up.
I am prejudiced against because I'm a rich white billionaire. If I'm just the average guy down the block, they're not pulling me in. Of course not.
Do you know what it's going to sound like if people hear you say they're prejudiced against a rich white
I don't care
billionaire?
what it sounds like. It's the truth. I don't, Andre, I could give a damn what people think, how anything sounds or sounds like. The truth is the truth, and I know the truth.
Well, Jim Irsay's a fraud. Here's why. Because you could give a damn what people think about you, but now you are going on a tweeting tirade and a rant about something that I guess Stephen A. Smith and Molly Karam and Kimberly Martin said today. Yeah, you're freaking out, going nuts on Twitter. I'll get to those tweets in just a second. But Jim Irsay was arrested. He pled guilty, too, to DUI. Now, he claims the reason why he failed the sobriety test was because he just had hip surgery and he couldn't walk. So even though he may look at this and say publicly, it wasn't worth it, putting up with the legal fees and all that, you're worth so much money. If you wanted to clear your name and you legitimately had hip surgery and that's why you couldn't walk, wouldn't you not plead guilty? So this is a joke. And let me say this too, because tonight a lot of people go out and a lot of people do a lot of things. And then for some reason they get in the car and they drive. This is a very personal matter to me. My mother, years ago, before I was even born, like when she was a teenager, got hit by a drunk driver who was driving under the influence. She got hit dead on. The driver was going down the wrong way of the street into oncoming traffic, hits my mother. My mother went through the windshield and landed up on his car. My mother was lucky to still be alive. If you are intoxicated, if you are taking drugs, whatever you're doing, out at a bar, in your house, not my business. But you get in a car, it's not going to end well. You're either going to end up in jail, you're going to harm yourself, or you're going to harm somebody else. And guess what? If you get away with it, and you don't get arrested, you don't harm yourself, you don't harm somebody else, you'll do it again, and eventually it will catch up to you. So I don't want to hear Jim Irsay, who pled guilty to DUI, now say, yeah, it was because of my hip surgery. If that was the case, you shouldn't have been a dummy, and you shouldn't have pled guilty then. That's ridiculous from Jim Irsay. And now he's tweeting on just a tirade. First take, you're gonna get your ass sued because there was no alcohol, no illegal drugs. $29,000 is low for me to be carrying in 2014 arrest. I give away $2,000 to $10,000 to the homeless and needy on the streets all the time and pass it on, making the world better. Okay, then why'd you plead guilty? If you weren't under the influence, why'd you plead guilty, Jim? And then he goes on to say a bunch of stuff that doesn't matter. My grandparents came from Ellis Island with just a shirt on their back, penniless and escaping Jewish concentration camps. I grew up in a horrible home where both my brother and sister died in a car crash in 1971. I worked for my living, bought 30% of the Colts bank loan. Like, what does any of this stuff mean? Like, it has nothing to do, and I say this as a Jewish man, it has nothing to do with you getting pulled over and you getting arrested and you pleading guilty. And this is where he goes to a new low. And on First Take, the woman that preceded Stephen A., how dare you pretend to know me? I don't know your name and I don't care to. Clearly you do because you're tweeting about her. If my black mother Dorothy was still alive, you'd be in some big hot water. You are mean and ugly. You're a nothing burger. Jim Irsay now is allowed to say who's attractive in this world. Jim, have you looked into the mirror? Have you seen the way that you look? Yeah, give me a break. And I guess he's talking about Molly Karam or Kimberly Martin. But that's her. So you don't like someone's opinion, so you go, oh, you're ugly? Like, give me a break. This guy's such a loser. Hey, Roger Goodell, if he had any balls, would call Jim Irsay up right now and say, stop tweeting. Like, give me your X account. We need to deactivate this. And then he tweets a photo of, I guess it's him and Edrin James. And he says, hey, Stephen A., my friend and buddy Edrin James from Spain on vacation together say, get a life, fool. You ain't got a clue, fool. Now, do me a favor, boy. Play me that clip one more time of Jim Irsay on his 2014 DUI arrest. This courtesy of, once again, Real Sports.
I am prejudiced against because I'm a rich white billionaire. If I'm just the average guy down the block, they're not pulling me in. Of course not.
Do you know what it's going to sound like if people hear you say they're prejudiced against a rich white
I don't care
billionaire?
what it sounds like. It's the truth. I don't, Andre, I could give a damn what people think, how anything sounds or sounds like. The truth is the truth, and I know the truth.
I could give a damn what people say about you. And why do you care what First Take says about you? That's what I would say to Jim. And him saying he got pulled over because he's a white billionaire. Well, if you have all this money, which we know you do, why'd you plead guilty? If you were innocent, why did you plead guilty? It's a joke from Jim Irsay. He's an embarrassment to the NFL. That's what he is. He's a constant clown. And the only good thing he ever did was speak his mind against Daniel Snyder. That's the only good thing Jim Irsay's ever done for the NFL. He's a joke. He's a loser.
And, listen, I'm not, going to be the grammar police here, but, these tweets, he's got commas
I needed to laugh
in the
there,
wrong
Samter.
place.
Good job.
He's got commas in the wrong place. He's got, the wrong you're. He said you're mean and ugly. He's talking I mean, listen, I don't want to make any accusations, but it sounds like he's drunk or high or something.
I don't want to go there.
Yeah, but the way he's
tweeting
typing,
like he's stupid.
There's something.
He's stupid.
There's something his mind is just out in the ether. It makes no sense what he's saying. The content makes no sense, but the way he's typing, there's something going on.
And don't get me wrong. There's sometimes when you're rich, you're successful, you're famous, you get treated the wrong way. People try to tear you down, and people try to do things that are unfair to try to get some of your money and benefit off your fortune. But don't tell me this nonsense. You got pulled over and profiled because you're a rich white billionaire. And then, you failed the sobriety test because you had a hip replacement or you had hip surgery. And then, you pled guilty because you just wanted it to go away. Once again, you have all this money. Have all of it. Fight it. If that's true, if he's telling the truth, that he failed the sobriety test, which is tough for me to believe, because he couldn't walk because he had hip surgery, that's something easy that you could fight here. But that's not what he did. He pled guilty. All righty. Let's go to Take 5 Wednesday. This is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio.
As the dust settles from last week's games, it's time to look at which teams are rising and which are falling.
And there's an interception.
Zach ranks his top 5 NFL and college football teams on this week's edition of Take 5, only on the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, let's start off in college football because I think it's easier. Ohio State, I've kept you out of my top 5 for the last few weeks. Welcome to the top 5 in at number 5. 4, Oregon, big game this weekend against Oregon State. Whole lot of fun. I think Oregon is one of the more complete teams in the country. I absolutely love Dan Lanning, and their one loss on the year is to Washington, where the game didn't get to overtime because their kicker missed the field goal. Number 3, Washington. Washington had 2 weeks where they kind of didn't impress, but this team is undefeated, and their defense was called into question. And their defense was phenomenal up against Oregon State, where their offense got shut out in the second half. And that's a tough environment and also bad weather conditions. So Washington in at 3. Michigan's number 2. Outside of Georgia, who's number 1, I believe Michigan's the second most complete team in the country. Even though their offensive line's not as strong as the last 2 years, they still have a good offensive line with some injuries. McCarthy, I think, will be good enough on Saturday to make a big play, like the receiving core. Blake Corum's a stud. Donovan Edwards is a stud. And there's some guys on that defense, Sandstrill, Jenkins, etc., that just make plays. So Michigan in at 2, and then Georgia is in at 1. And we all know the SEC title game is going to be hyped up in a big way coming up next week with Georgia and Alabama. So Ohio State 5, Oregon 4, Washington 3, Michigan 2, Georgia in the number 1 spot. Speak now, forever hold your peace, Samter.
It's about time you put Ohio State in your top 5, considering they were ranked number 1 by the College Football Playoff Committee for a few weeks. So glad they're finally there.
Guess what? They're in my top 5 for 1 week. They lose to Michigan. Justice. for Zach Gelb. The well-deserved for all the takes I had to take from those Ohio State Buckeye fans.
Could be fun. Now, the team they supplanted
Now, if
in
it
your
goes
top
the
five,
other way real quickly, where Ohio State wins, man, I'm going to have a lot of egg on my face.
a lot of egg. I'll bring the egg in, and I'll be the one who helps supply it to your face.
You know, I got some vacation days still left on the calendar. Maybe I take all next week off. No, I wouldn't do that. Go ahead.
You know what, Zach? I wouldn't blame you if you did, because the amount of heat you would get from Ohio State Buckeye fans would be through the roof. Now, the team that Ohio State supplanted in your top five was Florida State. Do you think that Florida State falls out of your top five because you just don't think they're as good without Jordan Travis? Or are you kind of like in a wait-and-see mode to see how important Jordan Travis was to that team?
I think in national media, I've been the most positive person about Florida State since before the start of the season, where I predicted them to win the ACC. I love the Florida State program. I took them out of my top five, even though there could still be a path for them to get to the college football playoff. They win the next 2 games, are undefeated. We had this conversation earlier. It's going to be a crazy debate. But I took them out of the top five just because of the Jordan Travis injury. And now there's an unknown at the quarterback spot.
Now, the other 2 teams that have been there in Speak Now for a little while is Bama and Texas. Do you legitimately think that Bama and Texas are outside of the top five as far as being not one of the 5 best teams in the country, or that their resume for the college football playoff is outside the top 5 as far as college football playoff eligibility?
Gotcha. So Texas, I don't think they are worthy right now to be in the top 5. I don't. For Alabama, I would say the same thing as well. But if you put like Alabama on a field tomorrow against Washington or Florida State, even though I have great respect for Washington and Florida State, I truly don't know who's going to win that game. Texas, I think it would be close as well. So you can make a case for why they should be in. But for Alabama, I won't fully get back on them, even though I've been positive about them the last few weeks, until they beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. And it's tough right now to put Alabama in front of Texas, even though the committee may do that eventually, because Texas beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Alrighty, NFL. This was tough. Finding the 5 teams wasn't tough. It was ordering the teams. In at number 5, Kansas City Chiefs. 3 weeks in a row, the offense didn't score in the second half. Defense is great. Offense has problems. Wide receivers got to catch the ball. Number 4, Dan Campbell's Detroit Lions. They're in at number 4. They're 8-2. They're going to be 9-2 after tomorrow when they take care of business up against the Go Pack Go. Number 3. It is the 49ers. I was really close to putting the Lions in front of the 49ers. I did think the injuries caught up to the 49ers during that 3-game losing streak. I said, don't get crazy. Don't freak out. Don't buy stock in the 49ers. They're still one of the best teams in football. You get Trent Williams back. You get Deebo Samuel back, and look what happens. Brock Purdy goes back to looking like he's a great quarterback. Number 2, Baltimore Ravens. At home, I know they lost to the Browns 2 weeks ago, but at home, they blew out the Seahawks. They blew out the Lions. Baltimore has this phenomenal defense. Offensively, I still think they're finding their way, and they're still 8-3, and Lamar's healthy, and they just need Lamar to be healthy, and they're as good as anybody in the AFC if number 8 is healthy. And the number 1, the Philadelphia Eagles, 9-1, still haven't even played their best brand of football yet. Kind of sleptwalked through the first 3 quarters in Kansas City, and then came alive in the 4th quarter and found a way to defeat the Kansas City Chiefs. So 5 Chiefs, 4 Lions, who beat the Chiefs, 3 49ers, 2 Ravens, and 1 the Philadelphia Eagles. Samter, speak now, forever hold your peace.
You know, there's actually a few teams that belong in here. Usually there's 1 or 2, sometimes 3. I got 4 teams that I think can make a case for that top 5. Let's start with the Cleveland Browns. You've been all over them this week about how good that defense is, and all they need is a quarterback. Why don't they sneak into your top 5?
Here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Woof, woof. Very simple. I still don't trust the quarterback. And their defense is phenomenal. But I think it helped when they were going up against an inept offense that couldn't put up points. And you just need Dorian Thompson-Robinson to do something at the end of the game. So that's why I don't put the Browns in the top 5. If I had to take the Browns and put them in, I had to take Kansas City out. I'll still trust Mahomes with a good defense than Dorian Thompson-Robinson with a great defense and Mahomes still having no wide receivers. So I'll still trust more of the Chiefs there.
All right, and then they're rising. I mean, they've got a couple wins in a row. Dak looks hot. The Dallas Cowboys, I mean, I know we have to see what happens in the playoffs, but the Cowboys look legit.
Can they beat somebody? And I'm not talking about the Giants twice. I'm not talking about the Jets and the Pats and the Chargers. There's 2 biggest games of the season. They're a good team, not a great team. They lost to Philadelphia, but they gave a great effort. They still lost the game. And then they also lost and got destroyed, dominated by the San Francisco 49ers. So they're good. They're in the top 10, but they're not deserving of the top 5 right now.
All right, and then the Jacksonville Jaguars. We have no idea what the Jaguars are. Just when we think that they're the best, they get smashed. Just when we think that they're not the team, they just rise back up again. Where are the Jaguars?
So there's different levels here with the Dolphins, the Jaguars, and the Cowboys, who all have good records. There's different levels of who you think are like the better team. But for the Dolphins, the Jaguars, and the Cowboys, in their biggest games of the year, they come up small. Jacksonville lost to Kansas City. Jacksonville got blown out by the 49ers. Dolphins lose to the Eagles, lose to the Bills, lose to the Chiefs. So I look at all 3 of those teams, the Cowboys, the Jaguars, and the Dolphins, all as teams that they're good, but they're not great, and they don't beat the marquee opponents. All righty, that's a Take 5 Wednesday on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Ohio State in at 5, Oregon in at 4, Washington 3, Michigan 2, Georgia 1. And in the NFL, Chiefs 5, Lions 4, 49ers 3, Ravens 2, Eagles 1.
You told me you were going to have another AFC South team, though, in the top 5.
Okay. The Tennessee Titans. Here's the thing here, Boyle. You are filling in on the show. Remember that. I see Jack Stern in the newsroom. Maybe Jack will, maybe not. Come on back. John Jansen will join us, and we will chat with the former Michigan offensive lineman, also played for the Detroit Lions and the Washington Commanders. I'm going to go call my grandmother, get her wooden spoon, and I'll beat Boyle up. We'll see if he survives the next 40 minutes of the show, but John Jansen will join us next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's back. Here's Zach Gelb.
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We're gearing up for the game coming up on Saturday between Ohio State and Michigan. I'll be in Ann Arbor. Get in there early Friday morning. Going to the game on Saturday. Can't wait for it. And now joining us is a former Michigan offensive lineman, a part of the team's radio broadcast now. And he is the host of Necessary Roughness with Lang and Jansen. You can hear him on the ticket as well. He's all over the place with Stoney Mornings 97.1, the ticket. That is John Jansen. John, appreciate the time. How are you?
Hey, good evening. It's great to hear from you, Zach.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. So I don't want to bury the lead here. We'll get to that game coming up on Saturday. But how about Dan Campbell on your show the other day saying that turkey's basically trash and what he does on Thanksgiving is just eat a lot of ham?
I was shocked. And not only that, but he said he doesn't like stuffing or dressing. I couldn't believe it. If there was anybody coaching in the game of football that I thought would be a turkey, mashed potatoes, dressing covered in gravy, would have been Dan Campbell. But hey, to each their own. At least he went with another protein and went with some swine in the ham.
Well, he better not be a fraud after the Lions go to 9-2 and take care of business against the Packers. If he's eating a turkey leg on the field on Thursday, I would think very lowly of Dan Campbell after what he said.
Yeah, you know what? Hey, in the moment, if you're presented with that turkey leg, it's a tradition, it's a classic, and if they win, I mean, shoot, they haven't won since 2016. If he wants to take a turkey leg, if he wants to go vegan, I don't care. Just win the damn game.
But this is personal for me. So for years, I've kind of led this charge. I've been known as the radio guy that has said turkey's overrated, turkey's not good. My family, the main dish is lasagna on Thanksgiving. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me, say, when you talk about turkey, you're absolutely right. So I'm accepting of others that admit that turkey is not great. But for your Thanksgiving, John Jansen, what are some of your favorite food items? Are you a traditional person?
It's a good thing you told me after I was on the phone that you're not a turkey guy, or else I would have hung up.
Well, you would have been a dope. You would have been wrong. It wouldn't have been the first time, John.
Oh, my goodness. It seems very un-American that you wouldn't want to have turkey. I mean, obviously we'll have turkey, and I'm a pretty basic dude. I've got turkey, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, stuffing, and then it's all obviously covered in as much gravy as my plate will hold.
No, I find it funny you have a kid crying in the background the moment that you say that you're going to have turkey. The kid doesn't even like turkey in the background right now.
Oh, he's begging for it. That's what he wants. We're heading out to dinner right now, and he's jonesing for tomorrow's dinner already.
All right, let's get to the game, John Jansen. I won't keep you here forever because I know you got to get to dinner. Where is your confidence level in J.J. McCarthy entering the game on Saturday?
Oh, it's high. And I tell you what, I think J.J., it really comes down to the protection. If he can be protected by this Michigan offensive line, he's going to be able to surgically pick apart the Ohio State defense. But the problem hasn't been J.J. and his ability to throw. He's even really good at getting outside the pocket. It's been since the Purdue game. It was Purdue, it was Penn State, and then Maryland last week. We've struggled protecting J.J. At the end of the Penn State game, he took a hit, came up a little bit lame, and is going to be fine. I don't think there's anything going on with him anymore. But that's the main issue. You got to find a way to protect him. If you give him time, he'll be very accurate like he has been for the most part all season long.
When you look at Ohio State, outside of all right, their response and the Ryan Day and the Harbaugh stuff, I'm just talking about the team. How do you view this Ohio State team this go around?
Well, in terms of their wide receivers, it's classic Ohio State, right? They've got the best receivers in the country. They've got who I think is the most outstanding player in college football in Marvin Harrison Jr. You got Julian Fleming, Emeka Egbuka. I mean, you've got talent there. The difference this year is you've got a healthy running back in Travion Henderson. If Ryan Day sticks with the game plan of being able to throw the ball, run the ball, and mix it up, they become very hard to defend. Offensive line-wise, I don't think they're as strong as they were the last couple of years. And Kyle McCord is definitely not Justin Fields, and he's not C.J. Stroud. So that's really where their weakness is. And that's why when you ask about J.J., he's got to be that guy that I described. If he is, Michigan will win this game because Kyle McCord is just not that same type of quarterback that they've been used to having.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 no confidence, 10 all the confidence in the world, John Jansen, where's your confidence that Michigan wins this game?
I'd be an 8. I got to be honest, I'm pretty confident, but you never go into this game overconfident. If anybody goes in saying they're a 10, you're in for a beating. And this is going to be a physical matchup. And, whether or not you believe Ryan Day is right that his team is tough, I've never been one that you got to proclaim it. You got to see it on the field. And this is going to be the most physical game these guys will play all season long. It's going to be the toughest game. It's going to come down to who wants it more, who's willing to win inside the trenches. If your offensive line, your defensive lines are going to be tough, they're going to be physical, that's what's going to give you the edge in this game.
And I really do think as well, like the last few years, we've seen the way that Michigan has just dominated in the trenches. And last year, Michigan with McCarthy was able to make the big play. This Ohio defense is better than the ones the last 2 years. I think it comes down to, can Michigan go create a big play? And that's ultimately what I think will determine this game, John.
Yeah, and it really comes down to being able to block JT off the edge and Jack Sawyer off the other edge. If you can find a way, whether it's tight end, it's running back chip, it's motion, it's personnel, whatever you can do to slow them down, that's going to give you a good opportunity because they're good defensively. They're better in the secondary than they have been. And it is. It's a much better defense, and they're playing at a higher level. They're playing, connected. The with the secondary, I mean, they're playing really good football. So it's going to be a lot of fun, I can tell you that. And did I hear you're going to be in town?
Yeah, I'm going to be in town. I get in Friday morning, and I'll be there Saturday for the game, obviously.
All right. Hey, we will be pulling in at 5:30 a.m. I expect you at our tailgate by 6 o'clock when the lot opens up.
Send me the details. I never pass up free booze and free food as well. I will definitely hit you up on those details. Before I let you run, just 2 more with John Jansen. Obviously, the Stallion stuff, the sign-stealing scandal has been a part of this. What do you say to Ohio State fan that just says, John, the only reason Michigan beat Ohio State the last 2 years was because you had our signs?
Well, then you're not listening to Ryan Day, because he said early on that they knew last year that Michigan had their signs. They changed things up. They went with huddle. They did different things last year. So if you don't believe Ryan Day, then I'm not sure what you're talking about, what you're thinking about. They already made their adjustments, and last year Michigan was able to beat them at their own game.
And then finally, before we let you run, you're doing Morning Drive in Detroit. The Lions, right, they've been, I know this game is the story, but the Lions have really been the story this year that everyone could get behind. And they haven't won a division title since 93, haven't won a playoff game since 1991. They're 8-2. They'll be 9-2 after tomorrow after taking care of Green Bay. How far do you think the Lions can really take this thing this year?
I think, I mean, I would love to say that they're a Super Bowl contender, and certainly that's in the cards. It's a low percentage, and you got to be dealt the right hand. But I think they definitely have the potential to get to an NFC championship game. Home field advantage for the Lions. And then if they win their division, and you nailed it, like they've got one playoff win in the last 60-plus years. They've got to host a playoff game. They need to be able to have that advantage at home because it's such a young team. Jared Goff, and we saw it on display last week. Like, you know, he didn't play great at the beginning of that game, but he's got that veteran presence that can bring you back. But there's so many young guys that have never – they don't understand what the tempo of playoffs is like, what the excitement, what the energy is like. So if they could have 1, 2, and I mean, shoot, with only 2 losses right now, I mean, the Eagles look great, but they're still in the running for home field advantage throughout.
John, appreciate the time. Thanks so much. Enjoy dinner. Thanks for doing this. Hope to link up with you this weekend.
That sounds great. We'll see you Saturday morning.
You got it. There he is, John Jansen, joining us on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Always enjoy when we get to chat with him. All righty, let's do this. We'll take a break right now. We'll come on back. I want to play you some of this Scott Mitchell audio and after watching the Barry Sanders documentary. You know, isn't it funny? This is how you know I'm getting a little bit older. Not that I'm like an old curmudgeon, you know, just a pain in the ass old man. But usually the night before Thanksgiving, you would go out, you would party, you would have fun. Tonight, I'm not doing anything. I'm going home, I'm eating some dinner, and I think I'm going to watch like 3 things on TV. I'm going to watch the Barry Sanders documentary because now I'm intrigued about it. I'm going to watch the Barstool Sports Advisors and see Stu Feiner like throw pies in his face and just go crazy. And then, I got the Rangers tonight too, up against the Penguins. Those are the 3 things I'm going to do. I've like become a loser now the night before Thanksgiving.
Become?
Oh, hey-oh.
It's all right. Come on. Like, Samter's just sitting there. I'll go get the hammer out. We'll whack-a-mole and say goodbye to Samter, and that will be it. It's fine. You guys do anything like Boyle? I know you're like a frat wannabe star. You're a party rock star. Are you doing anything tonight?
I'm not going nuts, and I'm not going home. That's the thing. I was hosting yesterday after you, and I refuse to go home and have those awkward conversations with people that are within 10 years older or younger of me, and you don't want to talk to them, but then you run into them at a bar because you're home. Mm-hmm. And the only reason that you would ever be there is to try to hook up with somebody that you missed out on in high school. So, no, I'm here tomorrow all day doing updates. I'm hosting locally in the Black Friday morning, so I will.
Mm-hmm. So what are you doing tonight?
I'll probably go to a bar, have a couple drinks, and watch some basketball and hockey, but nothing crazy.
Okay, and you already ate dinner, right?
Yes.
I was going to say you want to go get dinner after the show, but shucks. Guess we can't do that.
Well, it depends who's paying. You got the host salary.
That's a fair point. Maybe I'll get have a meal with Boyle after the show. Belletti, they're off. Belletti ain't doing anything.
You for real? By the time I get out of here, I'm going to wind up with...
Belletti's just hoping the car works this time on the way home.
Listen, let me get home. Let's see if the 6-month-old is crying. Is a 3-year-old? Apparently he's got a fever. Let's see if the 9-year-old doesn't want to go to sleep. Yeah.
I don't know why. I sometimes
come on now.
I sometimes get intrigued by like other people's misfortunes and I don't know.
You want misery? Yeah, come here.
Well,
yeah, I got it.
So you told me the other day that someone in your family got sick, and that's where you're supposed to go to for Thanksgiving. So what are you doing now?
Now all kinds of monkey right. My sister got sick, so we were supposed to go there.
Okay.
So that's done. Then my mom was going to host, so apparently she's now cooking a feast, pushing 80 years old because she can't have anybody do anything for her. But now I did get a text about an hour ago. My daughter, my 3-year-old, has got a fever.
Aye.
So I don't know what the story is with her. We may not be able to go because if she's sick, can't get old people sick. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Can you just do me a favor here?
Mm.
Can you just run this line by your wife tonight? I really want to go to Thanksgiving. I haven't had a real Thanksgiving in a long time. How about you watch the kids? I'll go to Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I think we might be ordering Chinese is basically what it comes down to. I think that's what we might be doing.
Like, just we'll give you a recorder. You walk in the house, and we'll see what happens there. Marco's going to get hit by a wooden spoon or a shoe.
I mean, honestly, come on.
That's a solid plan, though.
What?
Chinese food, if nothing else.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, if we wind up and I got the sick kids and whatever, and we're going to wind up we've been the house of disease apparently for the last 3 months.
Yeah, wait, hold on. The last 3 months, I feel like this has been like the last
It's
half year.
ongoing since September. I
It's a
swear to
Petri
you.
dish.
It's disgusting. I mean, little kids.
How old are your kids?
They're nasty. They're germ infested.
One's like 4 months?
I got 9, 3, and 6 months.
Oh, jeez.
And the 3-year-old and the 6-month-old have been sick for 2 months.
Now, every time your kids get sick, do you get sick?
Oh, yeah.
All the time?
I mean, pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Because as much as you can't avoid them, what are we going to do? Say, like, oh, the 3-year-old's sick, put her in a room. Like, I mean, you got to take care of them. And usually after you hold them and they cough in your face and basically spit on you for a week, you're going to get sick.
I just have this, like, vision of Marco Belletti just in, like, a bathrobe, walking in, sitting down on, like, a small stool, reading a book, like Good Night Moon or something like that to your kids when they're
What am I,
sick.
Hugh Hefner? What am I in a bathrobe sitting on a stool?
I mean, like little Tony Soprano, kind of, with the wife beater shirt on, too.
I mean, I know I live in a crap shack. I don't sit on a stool. I got a couch.
I just picture Marco never is out of the Yankee hat and a colored flannel.
That's a good
See,
point, too.
actually, the hat comes off the second I walk in the door. That's the first
And
thing
the
that comes off.
sweatpants go right on.
Marco's
Pretty
closet,
much.
it's all just different colored flannels and different Yankee hats.
You walk around your house in just boxers?
No.
Okay. No. Gotcha.
Did I when I lived alone? Sure.
Yeah.
You got 3 kids.
Just you and the wife before the kids came around? You boxers?
Sometimes. Sometimes. Yeah, but I mean, she hated me then, too. So it was pretty much, put some clothes on. Yeah.
All righty. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll come on back. We'll preview the 3 games for tomorrow and also got to play you some audio from this reaction to the Barry Sanders doc from Scott Mitchell. Update time first. Here is the always positive, the always wonderful, America's husband, the great Marco Belletti.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Zach Jim Irsay claims police prejudiced against him because he's a rich white billionaire. This stems from the 2014 arrest for DUI, where Irsay explains what he says actually happened.
The arrest was wrong. I had just had hip surgery and been in the car for 45 minutes. And what? They asked me to walk the line? Are you kidding me? I can barely walk at all. And
So you're saying you couldn't walk because you'd had the hip surgery, not because you were on any kind of painkillers?
I mean, I'm not saying that. It's a fact.
At courtesy of HBO Sports. Meanwhile, Barry Sanders' documentary on Amazon is out. Scott Mitchell wasn't too thrilled being portrayed as the reason Sanders never won a Super Bowl. Went on profanity-laced post on social media. Now, Mitchell went on Boomer and Geo with Boomer Science and Greg Giannotti, WFAN in New York, further explained why he put out the post.
I just felt like I had to defend myself because I was a really good quarterback. And I just really, had we continued with and had some patience with the players we had and with the system we had, I think we could have done a lot more.
In college hoops, number 1 Kansas bounced number 7 Tennessee 69-60. I'm Marco Belletti.
Get 3 hours of Jim Rome, middays on CBS Sports Radio. CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick from the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Oh, my God, we're back again.
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Maybe I'll go grab a drink with Boyle after the show. Maybe on my dime, too. I got to eat some dinner, too. Westville good, Boyle? You down to go right next to the building, go to Westville after the show?
I could do that.
Okay. Samter, you down, or you got obligations? I'm assuming Samter's very busy. Samter's a very busy guy. He's all business. Even during the holiday tomorrow, Samter's going to be dealing with some business. But I got to eventually watch tonight at some point this Barry Sanders doc on Amazon Prime. I did see that former Lions quarterback Scott Mitchell, I guess he gets torn apart and is the reason to blame, let's just say, for Barry Sanders not getting to a Super Bowl. Well, he posted on Facebook, like last night he watches the doc, then he posts on Facebook at 3 a.m., I'm so tired of hearing how I was the reason that Barry Sanders never won a Super Bowl. I'm so tired of hearing how I was not a good QB. My only response is bleep you all. That includes Eminem and Jeff Daniels. I love the fire. Because you could envision this. You could definitely envision this. So you're the quarterback. You go to watch the Barry Sanders documentary. You sit down. And I have not seen it yet, but I'm assuming he gets torn to pieces and shredded to pieces in the doc. And then you're watching this and you're seeing all these people go after you. And I guess Eminem's in the doc and he's going after Scott Mitchell. And Scott goes, as he's probably about to go to bed, I'm going to fire off a Facebook post. Bleep you all. I love that. There's nothing more that I like than an older guy on Facebook just shredding people to pieces. It's such a dad thing to do. An older guy thing to do. So Scott Mitchell sounded off. He joined Boomer and Gio on WFAN, also via the CBS Sports Network earlier this morning. And he commented on his Facebook post about the Barry Sanders doc.
I just got kind of tired of hearing about how I was the problem with things in Detroit, and that if Barry just had a quarterback, he would have been a Super Bowl winner, that it was kind of that missing piece. I just felt like I had to defend myself. I was a good player. I was a really good player. I just didn't get enough time in that system and with that strategy to make it work. And I just wanted more time is really, I think, what I was frustrated with in my time in Detroit. And every time we won, there was this pristine picture of Barry Sanders on the front page. And every time we lost, I'm getting ripped apart by five guys. And I was okay with that. I really was. And I understood, the nature of it. I just wanted more time. And that's really all it is.
Now, I love Barry Sanders, and we know he's one of the more electrifying players in NFL history. I think I talk to Barry Sanders once a year at whatever event here and there for like the last 3 or 4 years. I don't know if, though, I was very inclined to watch this doc. After hearing Scott Mitchell's reaction, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to fire that up tonight. So Scott actually helps Barry Sanders maybe get more people to watch this documentary. I want to play Shaka Smart. So last night, Marquette is a top 5 team in the nation. Depending on what their outcome is going to be tonight, they could actually be the number 1 team. But last night, Shaka Smart took down Kansas, and there was a little kerfuffle during the game between Shaka Smart and Bill Self, and they were actually going at it, yelling at one another. This is Shaka Smart via ESPN Milwaukee on his little spat with Bill Self.
I probably shouldn't have got so excited, but I tell you what, I said this in the post-game media. We're Marquette. We are Marquette, and we don't take a backseat to anyone. So if someone wants to step up and challenge us, okay, we're going to challenge them right back.
And Marquette right now is playing Purdue in this tournament. They are trailing Purdue 33-27. The winner of this game will probably be the number 1 team in the country. I watched some of that. I didn't really get what the whole fight was about between Shaka Smart and Bill Self, but I guess Shaka Smart was annoyed with something, and then he tried to fire up his team and send a message as he's trying to get Marquette back. And they had a good season last year, a little bit disappointing in the tourney. But Shaka Smart, right, one of the more lovable coaches with what he did with Havoc at VCU, and then also disappointing at Texas, but then realized it wasn't going to work at Texas and goes to Marquette. I think that's a good fit for Shaka Smart. And finally, I just want to play this before we get into the games coming up tomorrow. This is Tariq Woolen and Carson Wentz. This is Tariq calling Carson Wentz after the Seahawks-Rams game, as Wentz is now a backup, a legend. This is courtesy of Seahawks Twitter.
Man, you big as hell in person.
Me?
Hell
you big
yeah.
I'm supposed to be. You ain't supposed to be.
I ain't even trying to be a fangirl right now. Chill, bro. No cap, bro. You a legend too, bro. Hell yeah. For real. Nice to meet you, man. I'm Tariq, bro. Hell yeah. Nice to meet you.
So that'd be one thing if there's some sort of college connection here, because Carson Wentz played at North Dakota State and he ended up being the second overall pick in the draft. But can I just throw this theory out here? And you guys just let me know if you think this has any legs. Do you think there was a chance Tariq Woolen thought that was Matthew Stafford? The Ram, like they're playing the Rams. You see this big white guy quarterback walking over. Do you think Tariq Woolen was like, hey, Matthew Stafford, you're a legend, just didn't say Matthew, and then it's Carson Wentz? Because I kind of explored this. I don't see what the connection would be why Woolen would think Wentz is a legend here.
I don't think after playing the entire game against Stafford that he would then see Carson Wentz.
Helmets on, it sounds stupid, but
maybe he fell in love with the Philadelphia Eagles when he was in college, or when he was, I guess, maybe even in high school at that time, right? Reek's only like 25, 26.
Yeah, second year in the league, and Wentz, that was back in 2017, 2016 when he first got to Philly and had that great MVP season. He should have won the MVP, and then he got hurt, so... Man, that was wild. That just shows you have one great year, or you have one great, you're a legend, you're the GOAT. I forgot who was it. It was Brandon Miller at the draft that said Paul George is his GOAT. There's a difference who your favorite player is and then who's the greatest player of all time or who we put in legendary status. Carson Wentz, no, not a legend. Finally, I hate to say it, I think all the teams that are expected to win tomorrow win. And I know that's usually chalk. I know that's low-hanging fruit. The Lions against the Packers, I like the Lions. Jordan Love looked better than what he actually is because the Chargers defense stinks a week ago. Cowboys, they'll beat the Commanders. That's what the Cowboys do. They beat up on bad teams. The Commanders are a bad team. 49ers Seahawks, if there's going to be an upset, there's potentially one, but I'm not going to bet against the San Francisco 49ers right now. So I think the 49ers win tomorrow. I think the Cowboys win tomorrow, and the Lions win tomorrow. If you don't want to go up against the spread, because the Lions 7.5, Cowboys 12.5. The 49ers are 7. Moneyline parlay, you get it at minus 105 with those three teams. I did throw together a funky, it was like over plus 1,000 anytime touchdown parlay. It was Sam Laporta, Brian Robinson Jr., and then Christian McCaffrey. I think that was like plus 1,100 or plus 1,200 on a little parlay for anytime touchdown. All righty, everybody. That is the Zach Gelb Show on a Wednesday, and that's the actual last show of the week. Not here tomorrow, not here on Friday, and no Eye on Football for yours truly on Sunday. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Wonderful time of the year. Food, family, football. We'll be back on Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Make sure you give me a follow, Twitter and Instagram. You'll see all the food tomorrow on my accounts at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB. You will not see a turkey. There's a little Zach Gelb Show PSA, turkey Thanksgiving. Very overrated. And then I'll be in Ann Arbor Friday, Saturday. Follow along there. And then Sunday afternoon, I will be at Lincoln Financial Field for Eagles and Bills. Have a great Thanksgiving, everybody. We out. Bye-bye. Peace. Titans.